The Magic Faraway Tree. Dick comes to stay. Once upon a time, there were 3 children, Joe, Bessie and Fanny. They lived with their mother and father in a little cottage deep in the country. The girls had to help their mother in the house, and Joe helped their father in the garden. Now one day, their mother had a letter. She didn't often have letters, so the children wondered what it was about. "Listen," she said, "this is something quite exciting for you. Your cousin Dick is coming to stay with us." "Oh," said all the children, pleased. Dick was about the same age as Joe. He was a merry boy, rather naughty, and it would be such fun to have him. "Oh, Mother," said Joe, "when is he coming?" "Tomorrow," said Mother. "You girls can put up a little bed for him in Joe's room, and Joe, you can make room for Dick's things in your cupboard. He's going to stay quite a long time because his mother is ill and can't look after him." The children flew upstairs to get Joe's room ready for Dick. "I say, what will Dick say when we tell him about the enchanted wood and the faraway tree?" cried Joe. "And what will he say when we show him our friends there, Silky and old Moonface and the dear old deaf Saucepan Man and everyone?" said Bessie. They looked out of the window onto a dark, thick wood whose trees waved in the wind not far from the bottom of the garden. "The enchanted wood," said Bessie softly. "What marvellous adventures we've had there. Maybe Dick will have some too." Dick arrived the next day. He came in the carrier's cart with a small bag of clothes. He jumped down and hugged the children's mother. "Hello, Aunt Polly," he said. "It's good of you to have me." "Hello, Joe. I say, aren't Bessie and Fanny big now? Oh, it's lovely to be with you all again." The children took him up to his room to unpack his bag and put his things neatly away in the cupboard and a chest. "I expect I shall find it rather dull here after living in London," said Dick. "It seems so quiet. I shall miss the noise of buses and trams." "You won't find it dull," said Joe. "My word, Dick, we've had more adventures since we've been here than ever we had when we lived in a big town." "What sort of adventures?" asked Dick in surprise. The children took him to the window. "Look," said Joe. "Do you see that thick, dark wood over there, backing onto our lane?" "Yes," said Dick. "It looks quite ordinary to me, except that the leaves of the trees seem a darker green than usual." "Well, listen, Dick. That's the enchanted wood," said Bessie. Dick's eyes opened wide. "You're making fun of me," he said. "No, we're not," said Fanny. "It is enchanted, and in the middle of it is the most wonderful tree in the world." "What sort of tree?" asked Dick, feeling quite excited. "It's the faraway tree," said Joe, "and at the top of it is always some strange land. You can go there by climbing the tree and going up a little ladder through a hole in the big cloud that always lies on top, and there you are, in some peculiar land." "I don't think I believe you," said Dick. "You're making it all up." "We'll take you there and show you," said Bessie. "It's all quite true. We've been to the birthday land, and the land of Take What You Want, and the land of the snowman," said Fanny. "You just can't think how exciting it all is." "And Dick, all kinds of queer folk live in the trunk of the faraway tree," said Joe. "We've lots of good friends there. We'll take you to them one day. There's a dear little fairy called Silky, because she has such a mass of silky gold hair. And there's Moonface, with a big round face like the moon. He's a darling," said Bessie. "And there's funny old Mr. What's-his-name," said Fanny. "What's his real name?" asked Dick in surprise. "Nobody knows, not even himself," said Joe. "Oh, and there's the old Saucepan Man. He's always hung around with kettles and saucepans and things, and he's so deaf he always hears everything wrong." Dick's eyes began to shine. "And Dick, there's a slippery slip, a slide that goes right down the inside of the tree from the top to the bottom. It belongs to Moonface. He lends people cushions to slide down on." "I do want to go down that slide," said Dick. "I'll never be able to sleep tonight." "We'll take you as soon as ever we can," promised Joe. A voice came from downstairs. "Children, are you going to stay up all the day? I suppose you don't want any tea. What a pity, because I've made some scones for you and put out some strawberry jam." Mother told them of all the jobs she had for them to do after tea. The children had been hoping to take Dick to the enchanted wood, but they said nothing. They knew that in a family everyone had to help when they could. Mother saw their disappointed faces and smiled. "I suppose you want to take Dick to see those peculiar friends of yours," she said. "Well, if you're good, I'll give you a whole day's holiday tomorrow, and you may take your dinner and tea." "Oh, Mother, thank you!" cried the children in delight. So they did their work well after tea and looked forward to the next day. Joe woke first. He sat up and looked out of the window. The sun streamed in, warm and bright. He leaned over to Dick's bed and shook him. "Wake up," he said. "It's tomorrow now, and we're going to the enchanted wood." Off to the enchanted wood. The children ate their breakfast quickly. Mother told Bessie and Fanny to cut sandwiches and to take a small chocolate cake from the larder. "Now, don't be too late home or I shall worry," said Mother. "Look after your cousin, Joe." "Yes, I will," promised Joe. It didn't take them long to get to the enchanted wood. "What a strange noise the leaves of the trees make," Dick said. "It's as if they were talking to one another, telling secrets. Whish, 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 whish," whispered the trees. "They are talking secrets," said Bessie. "By pressing our left ears to the trunks, we really hear what they say." "Whish, whish, whish, whish," said the trees. "Come on," said Joe impatiently. "Let's go to the faraway tree." They all went on, and soon came to the queer magic tree. Dick stared at it in astonishment. "Why, it's simply enormous," he said. "Goodness gracious! What kind of tree is it? It's got oak leaves, and yet it doesn't really seem like an oak." "It's a funny tree," said Bessie. "It may grow acorns for a little way, and then suddenly you notice it's growing plums or apples or pears. You just never know." "How do you climb it?" asked Dick. "In the ordinary way?" "We will today," said Joe, "because we want to show you our friends who live inside the tree." He swung himself up, and the others followed. When they had all got very high indeed, Dick was most surprised to see a little window in the trunk of the faraway tree. "Goodness!" he called to the others. "There's a window here. I'm going to peep in." "You better not," shouted Joe. "The angry pixie lives there." But Dick just had to. The angry pixie was filling his kettle with water when he looked up and saw Dick's face at the window. He rushed over at once and flung it open. "Peeping again?" he shouted. "It's too bad. All day and night people keep peeping. Take that!" He emptied the kettle of water all over poor Dick. Then he slammed the window and drew the curtains across. Joe, Bessie and Fanny couldn't help laughing. "I told you not to peep in," said Joe, wiping Dick with his hanky. "Oh, and by the way, there's an old woman who lives high up in the tree who's always washing. She empties the water away and it comes slish-sloshing down. You'll have to look out for that or you'll get wet." The children climbed higher and came to a broad branch. "There's a dear little yellow door with a knocker and a bell," cried Dick in surprise. "Who lives there?" "Our friend Silky," said Joe. He rang the bell and heard it go ting-a-ling inside. Footsteps pattered to the door. It opened and a pretty little elf looked out. Her hair hung round her face like a golden mist. "Hello, Silky," cried Joe. "We've come to see you, and we've brought our cousin Dick, who's come to live with us." "How do you do, Dick?" said Silky, holding out her small hand. Dick shook hands shyly. He thought Silky was the loveliest creature he'd ever seen. "I'll come with you if you're going to visit Moonface," said Silky. "I'll take some pot biscuits with me, and we'll have them in his house." They all went up the tree again. Soon they heard a funny noise. "That's old Mr. What's-his-name snoring," said Joe. "Look, there he is." Sure enough, there he was. Then they heard slissy sloshy, slishy sloshy coming nearer and nearer. "It's Dame Washalot's dirty water coming," yelled Joe. "Get under a branch, everyone." Dick wasn't as quick as the others. The water tumbled onto his head and went down his neck. He was very angry. "Next time I climb this tree, I'll wear bathing trunks," he said, trying to wipe himself dry. On they all went again, and at last came almost to the top. There they saw a door, and from behind it came the sound of voices. "That's Moonface and the old Saucepan Man," said Joe, and he banged on the door. It flew open and Moonface looked out. His big round face beamed with smiles when he saw who his visitors were. "Hello, hello, hello," he said. "Come along in. The Saucepan Man is here." Everyone went into Moonface's curious round room. There was a large hole in the middle of it, which was the beginning of the slippery slip, the wonderful slide that went round and round down the inside of the tree right to the bottom. Moonface's furniture was arranged round the hole, all curved to fit it. Dick stared in the greatest surprise at somebody sitting on the sofa. It was the old Saucepan Man. He really was a very curious sight. He was hung all round with saucepans and kettles, and he wore a saucepan for a hat. He made a tremendous clatter whenever he moved. "Who's that?" he said, looking at Dick. "This is Dick," said Joe, and Dick went forward to shake hands. The Saucepan Man nearly always heard everything wrong. "Chick?" he said. "Well, that's a funny name for a boy." "Not Chick, but Dick," shouted Moonface. "Stick?" said the Saucepan Man. "Good morning, Stick. I hope you are well." "Look, let's all have some pop biscuits," said Silky. "And Moonface, do tell us, what land is at the top of the Faraway Tree today?" "The land of Topsy-Turvy," said Moonface. "But I don't advise you to go there. It's most uncomfortable." "Oh, do let's!" cried Dick. "Can't we just peep at it?" "We'll see," said Joe, giving him a pop biscuit. "Eat this, Dick." Dick put one in his mouth and bit it. It went pop at once, and he found his mouth full of sweet honey from the middle of the biscuit. "Delicious," he said. "I'll have another. I say, Joe, do let's take our lunch up into the land of Topsy-Turvy." The land of Topsy-Turvy. "What is Topsy-Turvy land like?" asked Joe. "Never been there," said Moonface, "but I should think it's quite safe, really. It's only just come here, so it should stay for a while. Silky and I and Saucepan Man will come with you if you like." Moonface turned to the Saucepan Man, who was enjoying his 5th pop biscuit. "Saucepan, we're going up the ladder," he said. "Are you coming?" "Humming?" said Saucepan, looking all round. "No, I didn't hear any humming." "I said, are you coming?" said Moonface. "Oh, coming," said Saucepan. "Of course I'm coming. Are we going to take our lunch?" "Yes," said Moonface, going to a curved door that opened onto a tiny larder. "I'll see what I've got. Tomatoes, plums, ginger snaps, ginger beer. I'll bring them all." Joe led the way up to the very top of the Faraway Tree. A vast white cloud swam above them, but just nearby was a hole right through the cloud. "That's where we go," said Joe. They all went up the topmost branch and through the purple hole. At the very end of the branch was a little ladder. Joe climbed the ladder, and suddenly his head poked out into the land of Topsy-Turvy. One by one the others followed, and soon all 7 stood in the curious land. It was a strange sight they saw. Every house was upside down and stood on its chimneys. The trees were upside down, their heads buried in the ground and their roots in the air. And, dear me, the people walked upside down too. "They're walking on their hands with their legs in the air," said Joe. "Goodness, what a queer thing to do." Some of them had been shopping and carried their baskets on one foot. "Let's go and peep inside a house and see what it's like, all topsy-turvy," said Joe. The children went up to a window. Everything really was upside down, the chairs and tables and everything. "It's a silly land, I think," said Fanny. "I vote we just have our lunch and then leave this place. I wonder why everything is topsy-turvy."
"Oh, a spell was put on everything and everybody," said Moonface. "Look, wouldn't that be a good place to sit and eat our lunch in?"
It was under a big oak tree whose roots stood high in the air. Joe and Moonface set out the lunch. It looked very good. "There's plenty for everybody," said Joe. "Have a sandwich, Silky. Saucepan, have a plum."
"Crumb?" said Saucepan in surprise. "Is that all you can spare me? A crumb?"
"Plum, plum, plum," said Moonface.
Joe happened to look round and saw something surprising. It was a policeman coming along, walking on his hands, of course.
"Why aren't you topsy-turvy?" he asked in a stern voice. "Don't you know that the rule in this land is that everything and everyone has to be upside down?"
"Yes, but we don't belong to this silly land," said Joe. "And if you were sensible, you'd make another rule saying that everybody must be the right way up. You've just no idea how silly you look, policeman, walking on your hands." The policeman went red with anger. He took a sort of stick from his belt and tapped Joe on the head with it.
"Topsy-turvy," he said. "Topsy-turvy."
And to Joe's horror, he had to turn himself upside down at once. The others stared at him standing on his hands, his legs in the air.
"Oh, golly," cried poor Joe.
"I can't eat anything properly now because I need my hands to walk with. Policeman, put me right again."
"You are right now,"
said the policeman, and walked solemnly away on his hands.
"Put Joe the right way up,"
said Dick. So everyone tried, but as soon as they got his legs down and his head up, he turned topsy-turvy again. He couldn't help it, for he was under a spell. "Take me back to the faraway tree," begged Joe, afraid that he might be made to stay in this queer land. "Hurry!" Everyone jumped to their feet and helped him along, but he wasn't used to walking on his hands and kept falling over.
"It'll be difficult to get him down through the hole in the cloud," said Dick. "Look, there it is. I'd better go down first. You others push him through as carefully as you can."
It was very difficult. At last they were all 7 through the hole and on the broad branch outside Moonface's house. Joe held on with his hands, his legs in the air.
"Moonface, Silky, can't you possibly take this spell away?" he groaned. "It's dreadful." "Silky, what land is coming to the top of the faraway tree next?" asked Moonface. "Have you heard?"
"I think it's the land of spells," said Silky. "It should come tomorrow."
"Oh, well, if it's the land of spells, we could easily get a spell from there to put Joe right," said Moonface, beaming. "Joe, you must stay the night with me. The others can go home and tell what has happened."
"All right," said Joe. They all went into Moonface's house, and Silky made a cup of tea. When it was 5:30, Bessie said they must go. "Goodbye, Joe," she said. "Don't be too unhappy. Pretend you're a bat. They always sleep upside down, you know, and don't mind a bit. Come on, Dick, we're going down the slippery slip." The Land of Spells. Dick went round and round down the inside of the faraway tree on a red cushion. At the bottom he shot out of the trapdoor there and landed on the soft green moss. He sat there for a moment out of breath. "That's the loveliest slide I've ever had," he thought to himself. He had just got up when Fanny shot out on a yellow cushion. Then came Bessie, giggling, for she always thought it was a huge joke to slide down inside the tree like that.
"What do we do with the cushions?" asked Dick. "Does Moonface want them back?"
"Yes, he does," said Fanny, picking them up. As she spoke, a red squirrel, dressed in a jersey, popped out of a hole in the trunk.
"Here are the cushions," said Fanny,
and the squirrel took them. He looked up into the tree, and a rope came swinging down.
"Moonface lets it down," said Bessie.
Dick watched the squirrel tie the 3 cushions to the rope end. Then he gave 3 gentle tugs at the rope, and at once the cushions were pulled up to Moonface.
"I wish Joe was with us," said Dick, as they all went home. Do you suppose Aunt Polly will be worried about him? Well, we'll have to tell Mother, said Fanny. She's sure to ask where he is.
Mother did ask, of course, and the girls told her what had happened.
I find all this very difficult to believe, said Mother, astonished. I think Joe is just spending the night with Moonface for a treat.
Well, he certainly must come back tomorrow, for there's work for him to do. Bessie wondered how Joe was getting on at Moonface's. He was getting on all right, though he was very tired of being upside down.
You had better try to sleep in my bed, said Moonface. I'll sleep on the sofa.
I suppose I'll have to stand on my head all night, said poor Joe.
I'll tie your feet to a nail on the wall, said Moonface. Then you can't topple over.
When morning came, Joe was most astonished to find himself upside down, for at first he didn't remember what had happened.
I'll just peep up through the hole in the cloud and see if the land of spells is there yet, said Moonface.
So off he went up the little ladder. There was nothing there at all, only the big white cloud moving about like a thick mist. Moonface slipped down the ladder again.
Topsy-turvy has gone, but the next land hasn't come yet, he said. We'll have breakfast and then I'll look again. Hello, here's Silky. Stay and have breakfast, Silky, darling.
I came up to see how Joe was, said Silky. Yes, I'd love to have breakfast. It's funny to watch Joe eating upside down. Hasn't the land of spells come yet?
Not yet, said Moonface, putting a kettle on his stove to boil.
They all had breakfast, then Moonface went again to see if the land of spells had come. This time he came back excited.
It's there, he said. Come on.
He and Silky helped Joe to walk upside down through the hole in the cloud and up the little ladder. At last he was in the land of spells. This land was like a big marketplace. In it were all kinds of curious little shops and stalls. In some of them sat tall wizards, famous for magic. In others were green-eyed witches, making spells as fast as they could. Outside sat all kinds of fairy folk at their stalls, pixies, gnomes, goblins, elves, all crying their wares at the tops of their voices.
"Spell to make a crooked nose straight," cried one pixie.
"Spell to grow blue daffodils," cried a gnome.
"Spell to make cats sing,"
cried another gnome. Joe could hardly believe his ears. How queer! Who would want to make cats sing?
"Now we must see if we can possibly find a spell to make you stand up straight again," said Moonface,
and they went into a little low shop with a nice-looking witch inside. The witch was knitting stockings from the green smoke that came from her fire. It was marvellous to watch her.
"Good morning," said the witch. "Do you want a spell?"
"Yes, please,"
said Silky in her most polite voice.
"We want to make our friend Joe come the right way up again."
"That's easy,"
said the witch, her green eyes looking in a kindly way at poor Joe.
"I've only got to rub a walking spell onto the soles of his feet, and it will make them want to walk, and he will have to stand up the right way then, so he will be cured. Come here, boy."
Joe walked over to the witch on his hands. She took down a jar from a shelf and opened it. It was full of purple ointment. The witch rubbed some onto the soles of Joe's shoes.
"Rimini, romini, wheat, stand on your own 2 feet. Rimini, romini, row, the right way up you must go."
And of course you can guess what happened. Joe swung right over, stood on his 2 feet again, and there he was, as upright as Moonface and Silky. Wasn't he glad? "It's funny," said Joe. "I feel quite giddy the right way up after standing upside down for so long. Thank you, witch. How much is the spell?"
"1 piece of gold," said the witch.
Moonface put his hand into a large purse. He brought out a piece of gold. The witch threw it into the fire, and at once bright golden smoke came out. She took up her knitting needles and began to knit the yellow smoke into the stockings she was making.
"I wanted a yellow pattern," she said, pleased. "Your piece of gold came just at the right moment."
"Golly, this is a very magic land, isn't it?" said Joe. "Don't let's go home yet, Moonface. I want to see a few more things."
All right, said Moonface.
There was the sound of voices. It was Dick with Bessie and Fanny close behind.
We climbed up to see where you were, said Dick. We began to be worried because you didn't come home. What happened?
Joe told him, and they were all very pleased. Just then they heard a loud noise coming along. Clankety-clank, rattle, bang, crash. "The Saucepan Man!" they all cried. "He's come up here too!" Sure enough, it was old Saucepan, grinning all over his funny face. He had so many kettles and saucepans on that nothing could be seen of him but his face and his feet. "Hello, hello," he said. "I guessed you were here. Been having fun?" "Yes," said Joe with a laugh. "Now let's go and explore a bit more." A witch was selling a spell to make ordinary broomsticks fly through the air. She was rubbing a pink ointment onto a broom handle belonging to an elf.
"Now get on it, say whiz away, and you can fly home," said the witch.
The elf got astride the broomstick, a smile on her pretty face.
"Whiz away,"
she said, and off whizzed the broomstick up into the air with the elf clinging tightly to it. "I'd like to buy that spell," said Joe. "I wonder how much it is." The witch heard him.
3 silver pieces, she said.
Joe hadn't got one, but Moonface had. He took them out of his large purse and gave them to the witch.
"Where's your broomstick?"
she asked. "We haven't got one with us," said Joe, "but can't you give us the ointment anyway, please?"
"Well, I'll give you just a little," said the witch.
She took a tiny pink jar and put a dab of the pink ointment into it. Joe put it into his pocket. Now maybe his mother's broomstick would learn to fly. As they came outside, a curious cold wind began to blow. Moonface looked all round and then began to shout,
"Quick! Quick! The land of spells is on the move! Hurry, before we get left behind!"
Everyone got a shock. They set off to the hole in the cloud. The wind blew more and more strongly, and suddenly the sun went out. It was almost as if somebody had blown it out, Joe thought. At once, darkness fell on the land of spells. "Take hold of hands! Take hold of hands!" cried Joe. "We shall lose one another if we don't." They all took hold of one another and stumbled on through the darkness. "Here's the hole," cried Joe at last, and down he went. He felt the ladder and climbed down that too. The others followed one by one, pushing close behind in the dark, longing to get down to the faraway tree they knew so well. How lovely it would be to sit in Moonface's room and feel safe. But down at the bottom of the ladder, there was no faraway tree. Instead, to Joe's astonishment, there was a narrow passage lit by a swinging green lantern.
"We've come down the wrong hole," groaned Moonface. "Oh, goodness, what bad luck!" "Where are we?" asked Dick in wonder. "I don't know," said Moonface. "We'd better follow this passage and see where it leads to. I'm pretty sure the land of spells has moved on by now."
Everyone felt very gloomy. Joe led the way down the passage. It twisted and turned, went up and down steps, and was lighted here and there by the green lanterns swinging from the roof. At last they came to a big yellow door. On it was a blue knocker, a blue bell, a blue letterbox, and a blue notice that said, "Mr. Changeabout. Knock once, ring twice, and rattle the letterbox." Joe knocked once, very loudly. Then he rang twice, and everyone heard the bell go ring, ring. Then he rattled the letterbox. The door didn't open. It completely disappeared. It was most peculiar. They could see right into a big underground room. At the end of it, by a roaring fire, a round, fat person was sitting.
"That must be Mr. Changeabout," whispered Dick. "Dare we go in?"
Mr. Changeabout and the Enchanter. Everyone stared at Mr. Changeabout. At least, as he was the only person in the room, they thought that was who it must be. He got up and came towards them. He was a fat, comfortable-looking person with a broad smile on his face.
"Dear me, what a lot of visitors," he said. "Do sit down."
There was nowhere to sit except the floor. This was made of stone and looked rather cold, so nobody sat down. Something happened to Mr. Changeabout when nobody obeyed him. He grew tall and thin. His broad smile disappeared, and a frown came all over his face. He looked a most unpleasant person. "Sit down!" he roared, and everybody sat down in a hurry. Mr. Changeabout looked at the Saucepan Man, who had sat down with a tremendous clatter.
"Have you a nice little kettle that would boil enough water for 2 cups of tea?" he asked.
The Saucepan Man didn't hear, so Joe shouted in his ear, and he beamed, got up, and undid a little kettle from the many that hung about him.
"Just the thing," he said, handing it to Mr. Changeabout. "Try it and see."
Mr. Changeabout changed again, and became a very happy-looking little creature with dancing eyes and a sweet smile. He took the kettle.
"Thank you," he said. "So kind of you. Just what I wanted. How much is it?" "Nothing at all," said the Saucepan Man. "Just a present to you." "Well, allow me to hand round some chocolates in return for such a nice present,"
said Mr. Changeabout, and fetched an enormous box of chocolates from a cupboard. Everybody was pleased. Dick looked carefully into the box when his turn came. His hand stretched out for the very biggest chocolate of all. Mr. Changeabout at once changed again and flew into a rage. He became thin and mean-looking. His nose shot out long and his eyes grew small.
"Bad boy! Greedy boy!" he shouted. "You shan't any of you have my chocolates now, horrid greedy children!"
And at once all the chocolates changed to little hard stones. Bessie had hers in her mouth, and she spat it out at once. The others looked most disgusted. The old Saucepan Man gave a yell of dismay.
"I've swallowed mine, and now I suppose I've got a stone inside me. Oh, you nasty Mr. Changeabout, I'll show you what I think of your chocolates."
And to everyone's surprise, Saucepan rushed at Mr. Changeabout, knocked his box of chocolates all over the room, and began to pummel him hard. Biff, smack, biff, smack. Goodness, how the old Saucepan Man fought Mr. Changeabout. And Mr. Changeabout fought back. But Saucepan was so hung about with pans of all kinds that nobody could possibly hit him anywhere without grazing their knuckles. Clang, clatter, clang, clatter, clash. Mr. Changeabout suddenly got very big and fierce-looking, but old Saucepan didn't seem to mind. He just went on hitting out at him and shouting,
"The bigger you are, the more there is to hit."
So then Mr. Changeabout got very small indeed, as small as a mouse, and ran squealing across the floor in fright. Quick as lightning, Saucepan picked him up, popped him into a bottle, and put the lid on him.
"Oh, Saucepan," said Joe,
wiping tears of laughter from his eyes.
"Be careful Mr. Changeabout doesn't squeeze out of the spout."
"I'll stuff it with paper," said Saucepan, tearing some from the box of chocolates. "Now he's safe."
"We'd better get out of here," said Joe.
He turned towards the doorway. But what was this? There was no doorway, and no door, only a wall of rock. "Goodness! How do we get out?" said Joe, puzzled.
"What about the chimney?"
asked Fanny, running to the fire.
"It looks pretty big. We could put the fire out and climb up, perhaps."
"That looks about our only chance," said Joe. He saw a tap jutting out from the wall. He put a pail underneath and turned on the tap. The water was bright green and soon filled the pail. Joe threw it on the fire. It made a terrific sizzling noise and went out at once, puffing clouds of green smoke into the room. Joe stepped onto the dead fire and looked up the chimney.
"There's an iron ladder going right up," he called in excitement. "Come on, we shall get dirty, but we can't help that. Hurry, before anything else queer happens."
Up the ladder he went. It was hot from the heat of the fire, but grew colder the higher he went.
"What an enormously long chimney!" he called back. "Is everyone coming?"
"Yes, yes," called 6 voices below him. Joe climbed steadily upwards. At last the ladder came to an end, and Joe found himself in a very peculiar place.
"This looks like some kind of cellar," he said to the others as they scrambled up beside him. "Look at all those sacks piled up. What do you suppose is in them?" "Let's look," said Dick, who was always curious about everything. He undid a sack, and goodness gracious me, out poured a great stream of bright golden pieces of money. Just as everyone was running their fingers through it, marvelling at the gleam and shine of so much gold, there came the sound of quick footsteps overhead. A door above them opened, and a gleam of sunlight shone onto a flight of stone steps leading up from the cellar to the door. A tall man in a pointed hat looked down.
"Golly, it's an enchanter," whispered Moonface in a fright. "We must still be in the land of spells. Oh, dear."
"Robbers! Thieves! Burglars!"
shouted the enchanter in a loud voice.
"Servants, come here! Capture these robbers! They are after my gold!"
"We don't want your gold," cried Dick. "We only wanted to know what was in all these sacks."
"I don't believe you!"
cried the enchanter, as about a dozen small imps came running into the cellar.
"Capture them, servants, and tie them up!"
Moonface suddenly snatched a kettle from Saucepan. He went towards the enchanter fearlessly.
"Wait,"
he cried, much to the astonishment of all the others.
"Wait before you do this foolish thing. I am an enchanter too, and in this kettle I have Mr. Changeabout. Yes, he is a prisoner there. And let me tell you this, that if you dare to tie me up, I'll put you into the kettle with Mr. Changeabout."
From the kettle came a small, squealing voice.
"Set me free, enchanter, set me free. Oh, do set me free."
The enchanter turned quite pale. He knew it was Mr. Changeabout's voice.
"How did you capture Mr. Changeabout?" he asked. "He's a very powerful person."
"Oh, I'm not going to tell you what magic I used," said Moonface boldly. "Now, are you going to let us go, or shall I put you in this kettle too?"
"I'll let you go,"
said the enchanter, and he waved them all towards a door at the end of the room.
"You may leave at once."
Everyone rushed through the door, gladly, expecting to come out into the sunshine. But alas, the enchanter had played them a trick. They found themselves going up many hundreds of stairs, up and up and up, and when they came to the top, there was nothing but a round room with one small window. A bench stood at one end and a table at the other. The enchanter's voice floated up to them.
"Ho, ho, ho! I've got you nicely. I'll be up there as soon as I've thought how to deal with robbers like you."
"We're in a trap," groaned Joe. "Moonface, you are very clever and very brave, but honestly, we're worse off than ever. I simply don't see any way out of this at all."
How can they escape? Moonface looked all round the room and said,
"It's no use going down the stairs again. We shall find the door at the bottom locked. And what's the good of a window that's half a mile from the ground?"
Joe looked out of the window.
"Gracious," he said, "the tower is awfully tall. I can hardly see the bottom of it."
"Joe, Dick, Moonface, please,"
said Silky.
"please think of some way to escape."
But there simply wasn't any way. No one wanted to jump out of the window. They all sat down.
"I'm dreadfully hungry," said Bessie. "Has anyone got anything to eat?"
"I may have some pop biscuits," said Moonface, feeling in his pockets, but he hadn't. "Feel in your pockets, Joe and Dick."
Both boys felt, hoping to find a bit of toffee or half a biscuit. Dick brought out a collection of string, bits of paper, a pencil, and a few marbles. Joe took out much the same kind of things, but with his rubbish came a pink jar, very small and heavy.
"What's in that jar?" asked Fanny. "Isn't it pretty?"
"Let me see. What can it be?" wondered Joe as he unscrewed the lid. "Oh, I know! It's the whiz-away ointment I bought in the land of spells."
I thought it would be such fun to rub some on Mother's broomstick and see it fly through the air. Smell it. It's delicious. Everyone smelt it. Moonface suddenly got tremendously excited.
I say, he began. I say.
Well, say then, said Joe. What's the matter?
Oh, I say, said Moonface, stammering all the more. Listen, if only we could get a broomstick, we could rub this pink ointment on it and fly away.
Moonface, that's a very good idea, if only we had a broomstick, but we haven't, said Joe. They all sat down to think. Joe looked up. I suppose it wouldn't be any good rubbing the whiz-away ointment onto anything else, he asked. Would it make anything else but broomsticks fly?
I shouldn't think so, said Moonface. Anyway, we haven't got a stick of any sort.
No, but there's a table over there, and this bench, said Joe, getting very excited. Couldn't we try on those? We could easily sit on them and fly off, if only the magic would work.
But it won't, said Silky. It's only for broomsticks. But try it, Joe.
He dabbed a finger into the pink ointment and rubbed some all over the top of the wooden bench, which was very like a form at school.
Now for the table, said Joe.
He turned it upside down, thinking it would be more comfortable to sit on that way. He rubbed the ointment all over the underside of the table. As he was doing this, Silky thought she heard somebody on the stairs.
It's the enchanter coming, she cried. Oh, do be quick, Joe. He'll be up here in a minute.
Moonface, Silky and Saucepan, you sit on the bench, said Joe. Bessie, Fanny, Dick and I will sit on the table. Hurry now.
Everyone scrambled to take their seats. Silky was trembling with excitement. She could hear the footsteps of the enchanter getting nearer.
Now hold tight in case we really do go off, said Joe. Ready, everyone? Then whiz away home.
And goodness gracious, the bench and the table began to move. Yes, they really did. They moved slowly at first, for they were not used to whizzing away, but as the children squealed and squeaked in surprise and delight, the table rose up to the window and tried to get out. It stuck. It couldn't get through.
Oh, table, do your best, cried Joe. The enchanter is nearly here.
The table tipped itself up a little, and then it could just manage to squeeze through the opening, sailing away with the children clinging tightly to each leg as it whizzed off over the land of spells. Joe looked back to see if the wooden bench was coming too. Just as it was about to jerk upwards, the enchanter came rushing into the room. What would have happened if the old Saucepan Man hadn't thrown a kettle at him, goodness knows. It was the kettle with Mr. Changeabout in. The lid came off. Mr. Changeabout jumped out and turned himself almost into a giant. The enchanter fell over him, and Mr. Changeabout, not seeing who it was at all, began to pummel him hard with his big fists, crying,
I'll teach you to put me in a kettle!
There was a perfectly marvellous fight going on, just as the wooden bench flew out of the window, with Moonface, Silky and Saucepan clinging tightly to it. Far away in the distance was the upside-down table. It whizzed steadily onwards, over hills and woods, and once over the sea.
I hope the table knows its way, said Joe.
It knew its way all right. Joe gave a shout.
The enchanted wood, he cried. We're nearly home.
The table flew down to the garden of the children's cottage. Their mother was there, hanging out some clothes. She looked round in the greatest astonishment when she saw them arrive in such a peculiar way.
Well, really, she said, whatever next?
Do you usually fly around the country in an upside-down table?
Oh, Mother, we've had such an adventure, said Joe, scrambling off. Where's the bench? Said Dick. Oh, I suppose it will go to the Faraway Tree, as that is where the others live. Gracious, I feel all trembly, Joe. I'm not going into any more lands at the top of the Faraway Tree again. It's just a bit too exciting. Right, said Joe. I feel the same. No more adventures for me.
The Land of Dreams. The children had had enough of adventures for some time. Their mother set them to work in the garden, and they did their best for her. Nobody suggested going to the enchanted wood at all.
"I hope old Moonface, Silky and the Saucepan Man got back to the tree safely," said Joe one day.
Moonface was wondering the same thing about the children. He and Silky talked about it.
"We haven't seen the children for ages," he said.
So one afternoon, just after lunch, Silky and Moonface walked up to the door of the cottage. Bessie opened it and squealed with delight.
"Moonface! So you got back safely after all. Come in, Silky darling. Saucepan, you'll have to take off a kettle or two if you want to get in at the door."
The children's parents were out.
"What land is at the top of the tree now?" asked Dick.
"Don't know,"
said Moonface. "Like to come and see?"
"No, thanks," said Joe at once. "We're not going up there any more."
"Well, come back and have tea with us," said Moonface. "Silky's got some pop biscuits, and I've got some Google buns. I don't often make them, and I tell you they're a treat."
"Google buns?" said Bessie in astonishment. "Whatever are they?"
"You come and see," said Moonface, grinning. "They're better than pop biscuits, aren't they, Silky?"
"Much,"
said Silky. "Well, Fanny and I have finished our work," said Bessie. "What about you boys?" "We've got about half an hour more to do," said Joe. "If everybody helps, it will only take about 10 minutes. Everybody did help, and it didn't take more than 10 minutes. They put away their tools, washed their hands, left a note for Mother, and then set off for the enchanted wood. The Saucepan Man sang one of his ridiculous little songs on the way.
"Two tails for a kitten, 2 clouds for the sky, 2 pigeons for Christmas to make a plum pie."
"Go on," said Dick. "This is the silliest song I ever heard."
The Saucepan Man clashed 2 kettles together as he sang.
2 roses for Bessie, 2 spankings for Joe, 2 ribbons for Fanny, with a ho-derry-ho.
Singing silly songs, they all reached the faraway tree. Saucepan yelled up it.
"Hi, what's his name? Let down a rope, there's a good fellow. It's too hot to walk up today."
The rope came down. They all went up, one by one, pulled high by the strong arms of Mr. What's-his-name. Fanny was unlucky. She got splashed by Dame Washalot's water.
"Next time I go up on the rope I shall take my umbrella with me," she said crossly.
Soon they were sitting in Moonface's house, eating pop biscuits and Google buns. The buns were most peculiar. They each had a very large currant in the middle, and this was filled with sherbet. So when you bit the currant, the sherbet frothed out and filled your mouth with fine bubbles that tasted delicious. Moonface looked round for Dick, but he wasn't there.
"Where's Dick?"
he said.
"He's gone up the ladder to see what land is at the top," said Silky. "I told him not to, but he's rather a naughty boy, I think."
"Gracious!" said Joe, running out of the house.
"Dick, come back, you silly!"
Everyone began to shout,
"Dick! Dick!"
"I'll go and see what he's doing,"
said Moonface. So up he went, and he didn't come back. Then the old Saucepan Man went cautiously up, step by step, and disappeared through the hole. He didn't come back either. "Whatever has happened to them?" said Joe in the gravest astonishment. "Look here, girls, get a rope out of Moonface's house and tie yourselves and Silky to me. Then I'll go up the ladder, and if anyone tries to pull me into the land above, you 3 can pull me back, see?" "Right," said Bessie, and she knotted the rope round her waist and Fanny's, and then round Silky's too. Joe tied the other end to himself. Then up the ladder he went. Before the girls quite knew what had happened, Joe was lifted into the land above, and they were all dragged up too, their feet scrambling somehow up the ladder and through the hole in the cloud. There they all stood in a field of red poppies, with a tall man nearby holding a sack over his shoulder. "Is that the lot?" he asked. "Good. Well, here's something to make you sleep." He put his hand in his sack and scattered a handful of the finest sand over the surprised group. In a trice they were rubbing their eyes and yawning.
"This is the land of dreams," said Moonface sleepily, "and that's the Sandman." "Don't go to sleep! Don't go to sleep!" cried Silky, taking Moonface's arm and shaking him. "If we do, we'll wake up and find this land has moved away from the faraway tree."
But Moonface lay down, and in a trice he was snoring loudly, fast asleep.
"Get him to the hole!"
cried Silky. But Joe, Dick, and the Saucepan Man were all yawning and rubbing their eyes. Bessie and Fanny slid down quietly into the poppies and fell asleep too. At last only Silky was left. Not much of the sleepy sand had gone into her eyes, so she was wider awake than the rest. She stared at everyone in dismay.
"Oh dear,"
she said.
"I'll have to get help. I must go and fetch What's-his-name and the angry pixie and Dame Washalot too."
And she ran off to the hole in the cloud. After a minute or so, Joe woke up. He rubbed his eyes and looked around. Not far off he saw something that pleased him very much. It was an ice cream man with his cart. The man was ringing his bell loudly.
"Hi, Moonface, wake up!" cried Joe. "There's an ice cream man. Have you any money?"
Everyone woke up. Moonface felt in his purse and then stared in the greatest surprise. It was full of marbles.
"Now, who put marbles there?" he wondered.
The ice cream man rode up.
"Marbles will do to pay for my ice cream," he said.
So Moonface gave him 6 marbles. The man gave them each a packet and rode off. Moonface opened his packet expecting to find a delicious ice cream, but inside there was a big whistle. Everyone else had a whistle too.
"How extraordinary," said Dick. "This is the kind of thing that happens in dreams."
"Well, after all, this is dreamland," said Bessie. "I wonder if these whistles blow." She blew hers. It was very loud indeed. The others blew theirs too. And at once 6 policemen arrived, running for all they were worth. They rushed up to the children.
"What's the matter?" they cried. "You are blowing police whistles. Do you want help?"
"No," said Dick with a giggle.
"Then you must come to the swimming bath,"
said a policeman, and to everyone's enormous astonishment they were all led off.
"Why the swimming bath?" said Fanny. "We haven't got bathing costumes."
"Oh, you naughty storyteller,"
said the policeman nearest to her. To Bessie's tremendous surprise, she found that she had on a blue and white bathing costume, and all the others had bathing suits too. They came to the swimming bath.
"Get in and swim,"
said a policeman.
"There's no water,"
said Dick.
"Don't be silly."
And then, very suddenly, all the policemen began to cry, and in a trice the swimming bath was full of their tears.
"This sort of thing makes me feel funny," said Joe. "I don't want to swim in tears. Quick, everyone, push the policeman into the bath."
In half a second, all the policemen were kicking feebly in the bath of tears. Then they changed into blue fishes and swam away, flicking their tails.
"I feel as if I'm dreaming," said Dick.
"So do I," said Joe. "I wish I could get out of it." A man came down the road carrying a green-covered tray on his head. He rang a bell.
"Muffins! Fine muffins!" he shouted. "Muffins for sale!"
"Oh, I feel as if I could eat a muffin," said Bessie. "Hi, Muffin Man, we'll have 6, please." The Muffin Man stopped. He took down the tray from his head and uncovered it. Underneath were not muffins, but small kittens. He handed one to each of the surprised children and one to Moonface and Saucepan. Then he covered up his tray again and went off ringing his bell.
"Does he suppose we can eat kittens?" said Bessie. "I say, aren't they darlings? What are we going to do with them?"
"They seem to be growing," said Joe in surprise. And so they were. Soon they were too heavy to carry. They were big cats. They still went on growing until they were as big as tigers. They gambolled playfully round the children, who were really rather afraid of them.
"Now," said Joe to the enormous kittens, "you belong to the Muffin Man. Go after him and get onto his tray where you belong. Listen, you can still hear his bell. Go along now." To everyone's delight, the great animals gambolled down the road after the Muffin Man.
"I say," said Dick with a giggle, "don't let's buy anything from anybody else. It's a bit too surprising."
"What we really ought to do is to try and find the hole that leads from this land to the Faraway Tree," said Joe seriously. "Surely you don't want to stay in this peculiar land forever?"
"I feel terribly sleepy again," said Moonface, yawning. "I do wish I could go to bed."
As he said that, there came a clippety-cloppety noise behind them. They all turned, and to their great amazement saw a great white bed following them, tippeting along on 4 fat legs.
"Golly,"
said Dick in surprise.
"look at that bed! Where did it come from?"
The bed stopped just by them. Moonface yawned.
"I'd like to cuddle down in you and go to sleep,"
he said to the bed. The bed creaked as if it were pleased. Moonface climbed onto it. It was soft and cosy. He put his head on the pillow, shut his eyes, and began to snore very gently. This made everyone else feel dreadfully sleepy too. One by one they climbed into the big bed and lay down, snuggled together. Then the bed went on its way again, clippety-clopping on its 4 fat legs, taking the 6 sleepers with it. Now, what had happened to Silky? Well, she had found Dame Washalot, Mr. What's-his-name, and the angry pixie, and had told them how the others had fallen asleep in the land of dreams.
"Gracious! They'll never get away from there," said What's-his-name anxiously. "We must rescue them. Come along."
Dame Washalot put a tub of water on her head. The angry pixie picked up a kettle of water. What's-his-name didn't take anything. They all went up the ladder at the top of the tree.
"The land of dreams is still there," said Silky when her head peeped over the top. "I can't see that horrid Sandman anywhere. It's a good chance to slip up and rescue the others now."
Up they went, and the 4 of them suddenly saw something most peculiar coming towards them, something wide and white.
"Goodness me," said Silky in wonder. "It's a bed!"
And so it was, the very bed in which the children and Moonface and Saucepan were asleep.
"Oh, look, look, look!" squealed Silky. "They're all here! Wake up, sillies, wake up!"
In the middle of all this, there came footsteps behind them. Silky turned and gave a squeak.
"Oh, it's the Sandman! Don't let him throw sand into your eyes, or you will go to sleep too! Quick, quick, do something!"
The Sandman was already dipping his hand into his big sack, but quick as lightning, Dame Washalot picked up her wash-tub and threw the whole of the water over the sack. It wetted the sand, so that the Sandman couldn't throw it properly. Then the angry pixie emptied his kettle over the Sandman himself, and he began to choke and splutter. What's-his-name suddenly took out his pocket-knife and slit a hole at the very bottom of the sack. The sand was dry there. What's-his-name took a handful and threw it straight into the choking Sandman's eyes.
"Now you can go to sleep for a bit,"
shouted What's-his-name. And of course, that's just what the big Sandman did. He sank down under a bush. His sleepy sand acted on him as much as on anyone else.
"Now we've got a chance," said Silky, pleased. "Help me to wake everyone."
But you know, they would just not wake. It was dreadful.
"Well, we can't possibly get the bed down the hole,"
said Silky in despair. Then a bright idea came to her. She felt in Joe's pockets. She turned out the little pink jar of whiz-away ointment.
"There may be just a little left," she said.
And so there was, the very tiniest dab.
"I hope it's enough," said Silky. "Get on the bed, Dame Washalot, and you others. I'm going to try a little magic. Ready?"
She rubbed the dab of ointment onto the head of the bed.
"Whiz away home, bed," she said.
And good gracious me, that big white bed whizzed away so fast Silky nearly fell off. It rushed through the air, giving all the birds a most terrible scare.
"It's going back to the Faraway Tree, I'm sure," said Silky.
And so it was. It arrived there and tried to get through the branches. It stuck on one and slid sideways. Everyone began to slide off.
Wake up! Wake up!
Squealed Silky, banging the children and Moonface and Saucepan. They woke up in a hurry, for they were no longer in dreamland. They felt themselves falling and caught hold of branches and twigs.
Where are we? Cried Dick. What has happened?
Oh, too many things to tell you all at once, said Silky. Is everyone safe? Then for goodness sake come into my house and sit down for a bit. Up the tree again. Everyone crowded into Silky's room.
How did we get back to the tree?
Asked Dick in amazement. Silky told him everything.
It was all Dick's fault,
said Joe when she'd finished.
Sorry, said Dick. Anyway, everything's all right now. I won't do it again.
We'd better go home, said Bessie. It must be getting late. Goodbye, everyone. Come and see us if we don't come to see you. They all slipped down the slippery slip at top speed. Then they walked home, talking.
I wish a really nice land would come to the top of the tree, said Joe. Like the land of Take What You Want. That was fun. I wonder if it will ever come again.
For about a week, the children didn't even go into the enchanted wood. But then a note came from Silky and Moonface. This is what it said. Dear Bessie, Fanny, Joe and Dick, you might like to know that there is a most exciting land at the top of the Faraway Tree just now. It is the land of Do As You Please, even nicer than the land of Take What You Want. If you want to come, we shall be going just before midnight. We will wait for you till then. Love from Silky and Moonface. The children read the note one after another. Their eyes began to shine.
Shall we go? Said Fanny.
Better not, said Joe. Something silly is sure to happen to us. It always does.
Oh, Joe, do let's go, said Bessie. You know how exciting the enchanted wood is at night.
Be a sport, said Dick. At any rate, let's hear what Silky and Moonface can tell us about this new land. If it sounds at all dangerous, we won't go, see?
All right, said Joe, who really did want to go just as badly as the others, but felt he ought not to keep leading the girls into danger.
All right, we'll go up and talk to Silky and Moonface. But mind, if I decide not to go with them, there's to be no grumbling.
We promise, Joe, said Bessie, and so it was settled. It was exciting to slip out of bed at 11:30 and dress.
Don't make any noise, or you'll wake Mother,
said Joe. They all crept down the stairs and out into the dark, silent garden. An owl hooted nearby, and something ran down the path. Bessie nearly squealed.
It's only a mouse or something,
said Joe. The enchanted wood loomed up big and dark. The trees spoke to one another softly. Wish-ah, wish-ah, they said. Wish-ah, wish-ah, wish-ah. The wood was full of fairy folk going about their business. They took no notice of the children. Lanterns shone everywhere. They soon came to the great trunk of the faraway tree. A rope swung down through the branches.
Oh, good, said Dick. Is Moonface going to pull us up?
No, said Joe.
We'll have to climb, but we can use the rope to help us. It's always in the tree at night to help the folk going up and down.
And indeed, there were a great many people using the faraway tree that night. Strange pixies, goblins, gnomes and brownies swarmed up and down.
Where are they going? Asked Dick.
Oh, up to the land of Do As You Please, I expect, said Joe.
Look, there's the angry pixie. He's got a party on.
Everyone dodged Dame Washalot's water, laughed at old What's-His-Name sitting snoring as usual in his chair, and at last came to Moonface's house. And there was nobody there, just a note stuck on the door. We waited till midnight. If you come and we're not here, you'll find us in the land of Do As You Please. Love from Silky and Moonface. P.S. Do come. Just think of the things you want to do. You can do them all in the land of do as you please.
Joe, let's go up the ladder, begged Fanny. Oh, do let's. It'll be just too mean if you say we can't.
Well, said Joe, well, I suppose we'd better. Come on. With shrieks and squeals of delight, the girls and Dick pressed up the little ladder through the cloud. A lantern hung at the top of the hole to give them light. But lo and behold, as soon as they had got into the land above, it was daytime. How extraordinary! The children stood and gazed around. It was like a huge amusement park. There were roundabouts, there were swings and seesaws. There was a railway train puffing along busily, and there were small aeroplanes flying everywhere, with brownies, pixies and goblins having a fine time in them.
Goodness, doesn't it look exciting, said Bessie. I wonder where Moonface and Silky are.
Over there, on that roundabout, cried Joe. Look, Silky is riding a tiger that's going up and down all the time, and Moonface is on a giraffe. Let's go on too. Off they all ran. As soon as Moonface and Silky saw them, they screamed with joy and waved their hands. The roundabout stopped and the children got on. Bessie chose a white rabbit. Fanny rode on a lion and felt very grand. Joe went on a bear, and Dick chose a horse.
So glad you could come, cried Silky. Oh, we're off! Hold tight!
The roundabout went round and round in time to the music. The children shouted for joy because it went so fast. Let's have 6 rides without getting off, said Joe. So they did. And dear me, weren't they giddy when they did at last get off. They rolled about like sailors. I feel like sitting down with 6 ice creams, said Bessie. At once an ice cream man rode up and handed out 36 ice creams. It did look a lot. When Joe had divided them out equally, there were 6 each. And how delicious they were! Everybody managed 6 quite easily. Now, what about me driving that railway engine? Cried Joe, jumping up. I've always wanted to do that. Would you all like to be my passengers? They raced to where the train was stopping at a little station. Hi, hi, yelled Joe to the driver. I want to drive your train. Come along up then, said the driver, jumping down. The engine is just ready to go. The land of do as you please. Joe jumped up into the cab of the engine. A bright fire was burning there. He looked at all the shining handles and wheels. Shall I know which is which? He asked the driver. Oh, yes, said the driver. That's the starting wheel. That's to make the whistle go. That's to go slow. And that's to go fast. You can't make a mistake. Look out for level crossing gates in case they're shut. It would be a pity to bump into them. Joe felt tremendously excited. Dick looked up longingly.
Joe, could I come too? He begged. Do let me, just to watch you.
All right, said Joe. So Dick hopped up onto the engine. The girls, Moonface and Silky, got into a carriage just behind. The guard ran up the platform waving a green flag and blowing his whistle.
The signal's down, yelled Dick. Go on, Joe, start her up.
Joe twisted the starting wheel. The engine began to chuff, chuff, chuff and moved out of the station. The girls gave a squeal of delight.
Joe's really driving the train, cried Bessie. Oh, isn't he clever?
The engine began to go very fast, too fast. Joe pulled the go-slow handle, and it went more slowly. He was so interested in what he was doing that he didn't notice he was coming to a level crossing.
Level crossing! Cried Dick. The gates are shut! Slow down, Joe! Slow down!
But unluckily, Joe pulled the go-fast handle instead of the go-slow, and the train shot quickly towards the closed gates. Just as it had nearly reached them, a little man rushed out of a cabin nearby and flung the gates open just in time.
"You bad driver!"
he shouted as the train roared past.
"You might have broken my gates!"
"That was a narrow squeak," said Joe.
"What's this coming now, Dick?"
"A tunnel," said Dick. "Whistle as you go through in case someone's walking in it." So Joe made the engine whistle loudly. It really was fun. Then something happened. The go slow and the stop handles wouldn't work. The train raced on past stations, through tunnels, past signals that were up, and behaved just as if it had gone mad. For miles and miles it tore on, and all the passengers became alarmed. And then, as the train drew near a station, it gave a loud sigh, ran slowly, and then stopped all by itself. It was the very same station it had started from. The driver was there waiting.
"So you're back again," he said. "My word, you've been quick."
"Well, the engine didn't behave itself very well," said Joe, stepping down gratefully. "It just ran away the last part of the journey."
"I dare say it wanted to get back to me," said the driver, climbing into the engine cab. "It's a monkey sometimes."
The girls, Moonface and Silky, got out of their carriage. They'd been rather frightened.
"Now what shall we do?"
asked Moonface.
"I want to ride an elephant," said Fanny at once.
"There aren't any," said Bessie. But no sooner had she spoken than 6 big grey elephants walked solemnly up, swaying a little from side to side.
"Oh, look, look!"
yelled Fanny, nearly mad with excitement. "We can all have a ride!" Each elephant had a rope ladder up its left side, so everybody climbed up and sat on comfortable seats on their backs. Then the big creatures set off, swaying through the crowds. Fanny did enjoy herself. She called to the others, "Isn't it fun?"
"It is fun,"
said Moonface, who had never seen an elephant before and would never have thought of riding on one if he had.
"Oh, goodness, my rope ladder has slipped off my elephant. Now I shan't be able to get down. I'll have to ride on this elephant all my life."
Everybody laughed, but Moonface was really alarmed. When they'd had enough of riding, the children all climbed down their rope ladders. But poor Moonface sat up high, tears pouring down his fat cheeks.
"I tell you, I can't get down," he kept saying. "I'm up here for good."
The elephant stood patiently for a while. Then it got tired of hearing Moonface crying. It swung its enormous trunk round, wound it gently round Moonface's waist, and lifted him down to the ground.
"What did the elephant lift me down with?" he asked. "His nose?"
"No, his trunk," said Joe, laughing. "Didn't you know that elephants had trunks, Moonface?"
"No,"
said Moonface, puzzled.
"I'm glad he didn't pack me in his trunk and take me away for luggage."
The children roared with laughter. "What shall we do now?" said Joe. "Dick, what do you want to do?"
"Well, I know I can't do it, but wouldn't I just love to have a paddle in the sea?" said Dick.
"Oh, that would be nice," said Fanny, who loved paddling too. "But there isn't any sea here." Just as she said that, she noticed a signpost nearby. It pointed away from them and said, in big letters, "To the sea."
"Goodness," said Fanny, "look at that.
Come on, everyone." Off they went, running the way that the signpost pointed. And after going round 2 corners, there, sure enough, was the blue, blue sea, lying bright and calm in the warm sunshine. Shining golden sands stretched to the little waves.
"Oh, goody, goody,"
cried Dick, taking off his shoes and socks. "Come on, quickly." Soon everyone was in the warm sea. Moonface and Silky had never paddled before, but they loved it just as much as the children did. Dick paddled out so far that he got his shorts soaking wet. "Oh, Dick, you are wet," cried Bessie. "Come back."
This is the land of do's you please, isn't it? Shouted Dick, dancing about in the water and getting wetter than ever. Well, I shall get as wet as I like then.
Let's dig an enormous castle, cried Moonface.
No, said Silky. It's time we went back to the faraway tree. This land will soon be on the move, and nice as it is, we don't want to live here forever.
Gracious, no, said Joe. Our mother and father couldn't possibly do without us. Dick, come into shore. We're going home. They all made their way to the hole that led down through the cloud to the faraway tree. We did have a lovely time, sighed Joe, looking back longingly at the gay land he was leaving behind. It's one of the nicest lands that has ever been at the top of the tree. The children went down the slippery slip, yawning. They made their way home and fell into bed, tired out but happy. In the morning, their mother spoke in surprise to Dick. Dick, how is it your shorts and jersey are so wet this morning? I paddled too deep in the sea, said Dick, and he couldn't think why his Aunt Polly said he was a naughty little storyteller. The Land of Toys. One afternoon, Silky came to see the children as they were all working hard in the garden. She leaned over the gate and talked to them.
Hello, I've come to tell you something.
Oh, hello, Silky dear, cried everyone. Come along in. We can't stop work because we've got to finish clearing this patch before tea. Silky came in. She sat down on the barrow.
The old Saucepan Man wants to give a party, she said, and he says, will you come?
Is it his birthday? Asked Joe.
Oh, no, he doesn't know when his birthday is, said Silky. He says he hasn't got one. This is just a party. You see, the Land of Goodies is coming soon, and Saucepan thought it would be a fine idea to go there with a large basket and collect as many good things to eat as he can find, and then give a party in Moonface's room.
That sounds fine, said Dick, who loved eating good things. When shall we come?
Tomorrow, said Silky, about 3 o'clock. Will you be all right?
Oh, yes, said Bessie. Mother says we've been very good this week, so she's sure to let us come. When is Saucepan going to get the goodies to eat?
Tomorrow morning, said Silky. He says that the Land of Goodies will be there then. Well, goodbye. I won't stay and talk, as I said I'd make some pop biscuits and googie buns for the tea tomorrow as well. I might make some toffee shocks too.
Silky went. Everyone felt excited when the next afternoon came. Mother said they might go, but she wouldn't let them put on their best clothes. Not if you're going to climb trees, she said. And Dick, please don't get your clothes wet this time. If you do, you'll have to stay in bed all day while I dry them. The children ran to the enchanted wood. They had to climb up the tree in the ordinary way, for there was no rope that day. Up they went, shouting a greeting to the angry Pixie and Dame Washalot. They reached Moonface's house, where he and Silky were laying out cups and saucers and plates, ready for all the goodies that Saucepan was going to bring back. Silky handed a bag round.
Have a toffee shock, she said.
Now, all the children, except Dick, had had toffee shocks before, and, providing you knew what the toffee did, it was all right. But if you didn't, it was rather alarming. Dick took a big one, for he was rather a greedy boy. He popped it into his mouth and sucked hard. It tasted most delicious, but seemed to get bigger and bigger instead of smaller and smaller. Dick tried to tell the others this, for it surprised him very much, but the toffee shock was now so big he could hardly talk. He said.
What language are you talking, Dick?
Asked Moonface with a giggle. Dick really looked alarmed. His toffee was now enormous. Suddenly it exploded, and his mouth was quite empty.
Oh,
said Dick, opening and shutting his mouth like a goldfish.
Oh! Don't you like your sweet? Said Silky, trying not to giggle. Well, spit it out if you like and have another. It's gone, said Dick. Then he saw the others laughing and guessed that toffee shocks were not the usual kind of sweets. Moonface looked at his clock. Old Saucepan is a long time, he said. It's 3:30, and he promised to be really quick. Hello, here's someone coming, said Moonface. Perhaps it's him now, but I can't hear his kettles clanking. Down the ladder that led through the cloud came a wooden soldier. He saluted as he went past. Hi! Hi! Shouted Moonface. Wait a minute! How is it that you live in the land of goodies?
I don't, said the wooden soldier in surprise. I live in the land of toys.
What? Is the land of toys up there now? Cried Moonface, standing up in astonishment.
Of course, said the soldier. The land of goodies doesn't arrive till next week.
Goodness, groaned Moonface as the soldier disappeared down the tree. Old Saucepan has made a mistake. He's gone to the land of toys instead of the land of goodies. I expect he's hunting everywhere for nice things to bring down to us. He's such a dear old stupid that he wouldn't know it wasn't the right land. We'd better go and tell him, said Silky. You children can stay here till we come back, and then we'll have a nice tea of pop biscuits and googie buns. We'll come too, said Bessie, jumping up. The land of toys sounds exciting. I wish we'd brought Perenelle, our doll. She would have loved to visit the land of toys.
I suppose it isn't at all a dangerous land, said Joe. Just toys come alive.
Of course it's not dangerous, said Silky. They all went up the ladder, very anxious to see what the land of toys was like. It was exactly as they imagined it. Dolls' houses, toy sweet shops, toy forts, toy railway stations stood about everywhere, but much bigger than proper toys. Teddy bears, dolls of all kinds, stuffed animals and clockwork toys ran or walked about, talking and laughing. I say, this is fun, said Bessie. Oh, look at those wooden soldiers all walking in a row. The children stared round, but Moonface pulled their arms. Come on, he said. We've got to find out where the old Saucepan Man has got to. I can't see him anywhere. The 6 of them wandered about the land of toys. Clockwork animals ran everywhere. A big Noah's Ark suddenly opened its lid and let out scores of wooden animals walking in twos. Noah came behind, humming. The Saucepan Man was simply nowhere to be seen. I'd better ask someone, said Moonface at last. So he stopped a big teddy bear and spoke to him. Have you seen a little man hung about with kettles and saucepans? He asked.
Yes,
said the teddy bear at once.
He's bad. He tried to steal some sweets out of the sweet shop over there.
I'm sure Saucepan wouldn't steal a thing, said Joe angrily.
Well, he did, said the teddy bear. I saw him.
I know what happened, said Moonface suddenly. Old Saucepan thought this was the land of goodies, so when he saw the sweet shop he thought he could take as many as he liked. You can in the land of goodies, you know, and people thought he was stealing. Oh dear, said Silky in dismay. Teddy bear, what happened to the Saucepan Man?
The policeman came up and took him off to prison, said the teddy bear. There's the policeman over there. You can ask him all about it.
The teddy bear went off. The children, Moonface and Silky, went over to the policeman. He told them it was quite true, what the teddy bear had said. Saucepan had tried to take sweets out of the sweet shop, and he had been locked up. Oh, we must rescue him, cried Joe at once. Where is he?
You must certainly not rescue him, said the policeman crossly. I shan't tell you where he is.
And no matter how much the children begged him, he would not tell them where he had put poor Saucepan. Well, we must just go and look for him ourselves, that's all, said Joe. And the 6 of them wandered off through the land of toys, shouting loudly as they went, Saucepan! Dear old Saucepan! Where are you? An exciting rescue.
The children, Moonface and Silky, went down the crooked streets of the land of toys, calling the old Saucepan Man.
"Of course, Saucepan is very deaf," said Joe. "He might not hear us, even if he were locked up somewhere quite near."
They went on again, calling and shouting. The toys hurrying by stared at them in astonishment.
"Why do you keep calling Saucepan, Saucepan?" asked a beautifully dressed doll. "Are you selling saucepans or something?"
"No," said Joe. "We're looking for a friend."
Just then Silky heard something. She clutched Joe's arm.
"Shh," she said. "Listen. Do listen."
Floating on the air came a well-known voice, singing a silly song.
2 trees in a teapot, 2 spoons in a pie, 2 clocks up the chimney, high tiddly high.
"It's Saucepan!" cried Joe. "Nobody but Saucepan sings those silly songs. Where is he?"
They looked all round. There was a toy fort not far off, but of course much bigger than a proper toy fort. The song seemed to come from there.
2 mice on a lamppost, 2 hums in a bee, 2 shoes on a rabbit, high tiddly hee.
Joe laughed loudly.
"I never knew such a stupid song in my life," he said. "It's coming from that fort. That's where he's locked up."
Everyone looked at the red-painted fort. Soldiers walked up and down on it. A drawbridge was pulled up so that no one could go in or out.
"Saucepan is certainly in there," said Moonface. "But don't call to him, any of you. We don't want the guards to know there are any friends of his here, else they may guess we'll try and rescue him."
"Oh, do let's try and let him know we're here," said Bessie. "He must feel so worried and unhappy."
"I know a way of telling him without anyone guessing we're friends of his," said Joe suddenly. "Listen." He stood and thought for a moment. Then he raised his voice and sang a little song.
2 boys in the high road, 2 girls in the street, 2 friends feeling sorry, tweet, 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 tweet.
Everyone roared with laughter.
"It's very clever, Joe," said Dick. 2 boys, that's you and me. 2 girls, that's Bessie and Fanny. 2 friends, Silky and Moonface. Saucepan will know we're all here."
A frightful noise came from the fort. A clanging and banging, a clanking and crashing. Everyone listened.
"That's old Saucepan dancing round madly to let us know he heard and understood," said Joe. "Now the thing is, how are we going to rescue him?"
They walked down the street, talking. They came to a clothes shop. In it were dolls' clothes of all sorts. A set of sailors' clothes, too. Joe stared at them.
"Now, I wonder," he said. "I just wonder if they've got any soldiers' clothes. Moonface, lend me your big purse if it's got any money in it."
Moonface put his large purse into Joe's hand. Joe disappeared into the shop. He came out with 3 sets of bright red soldiers' uniforms with big black furry bearskins for hats.
"Come on," he cried in excitement. "Come somewhere that we shan't be seen."
They all hurried down the street and came to a field where some toy cows stood grazing. They climbed over the gate and went behind the hedge.
"Dick, see if this uniform will fit you," said Joe. "I'll put this one on." "But Joe, what are you going to do?" asked Bessie in surprise. "I should have thought you could have guessed," said Joe, putting on the uniform quickly. "We're going to see if we can march into the fort and get old Saucepan out. I should think they'd let down the drawbridge for us if we're dressed like soldiers."
"Is this 3rd suit for me?"
asked Moonface excitedly.
"No, Moonface," said Joe. "I didn't think you'd look a bit like a soldier, even if you were dressed like one. You must stay outside and look after the girls. This 3rd suit is for old Saucepan. The soldiers wouldn't let us take him out of the fort all hung round with kettles and saucepans. They'd know it was the prisoner and would stop him."
"Joe, you are really very, very clever," said Silky.
Joe felt very pleased. He buckled his belt and put on his black bearskin. My word, he did look grand. So did Dick.
"Now we're ready," said Joe. Moonface, if by any chance Dick and I are caught, you must take the girls safely back to the tree. See?
I see, said Moonface. Good luck, boys.
Everyone walked back to the fort. When they got near it, Dick and Joe began to march very well indeed. Left, right, left, right, left, right. "Soldier, let down the drawbridge," yelled Joe in his loudest and most commanding voice. The sentinel peered over the wall. When he saw two such smart soldiers, he saluted at once and set to work to let down the drawbridge. Crash! It fell flat to the ground, and Dick and Joe walked over it into the fort. Creak, creak! The drawbridge was drawn up again. "I wish to talk to the prisoner here," said Joe. "Yes, Captain," said a wooden soldier. He took a key from his belt and gave it to Joe. "First door on the right, sir," he said. "Be careful, he may be fierce." "Thanks, my man," said Joe, and marched to the first door on the right. He unlocked it, and he and Dick went in. Saucepan was there. When he saw the two soldiers, he fell on his knees. "Set me free, set me free," he begged. "I didn't mean to steal the sweets. I thought this was the land of goodies." "Saucepan, it's us," whispered Joe, taking off his helmet so that Saucepan could see him plainly. "We've come to save you. Put on this uniform, quick." "But what about my kettles and saucepans?" said Saucepan. "I can't leave them behind." "Don't be silly, you'll have to," said Joe. "Quick, Dick, help him off with them." The two boys stripped off every pan and made Saucepan dress up in the uniform. "Now, march close to us and don't say a word," said Joe when Saucepan was ready. His kettles and saucepans lay in a heap on the floor. He fell over them as he scrambled over to Joe and Dick. All three marched out, keeping in step. Left, right, left, right, left, right. The other soldiers in the fort looked up but saw nothing but three of their comrades, as they thought. Joe shouted to the sentinel, "Let down the drawbridge." "Very good, Captain," cried the sentinel, and let it down with a crash. Joe, Dick and Saucepan marched out. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Moonface and the girls could hardly believe that the third soldier was old Saucepan. He did look so different in uniform, without his pans hung all round him. Silky flew to hug him. And then the sentinel of the fort yelled out in a loud voice, "I believe that's the prisoner! I believe he's escaped! Hi, hi, after them!" "Goodness! Run, run!" cried Joe at once, and they all ran. How they ran! Soldiers poured out of the fort after them. Teddy bears joined in the chase, and dolls of all kinds pattered behind on their small feet. "To the hole in the cloud!" shouted Joe. "Run, Bessie! Run, Fanny! Oh, I do hope we get there in time!" A shock for the toys. How the children and the others ran! They knew quite well that if they were caught, they would be put into the toy fort, and then the land of toys would move away from the faraway tree, and goodness knew how long they might have to stay there. Joe remembered the way. He led them all to the hole in the cloud, and there was the ladder, thank goodness. "Down you go," cried the boy to Silky, Bessie and Fanny. "Hurry! Get into Moonface's room, quickly!" Down the girls went, and then Dick, Moonface, Saucepan and Joe. Soon they were all in Moonface's house. But what was this? The toys didn't stay up in their land. They poured down the ladder after the children and their friends.
"They're coming in here!"
yelled Moonface. "Oh, why didn't we shut the door?" Soldiers, bears and dolls poured in, and Moonface, quick as lightning, gave them each a push towards the middle of his room. The opening of his slippery slip was there, and one by one all the astonished toys fell, squealing and kicking into the hole, to find themselves sliding wildly down the inside of the tree. After a while, no more toys came, and Moonface shut his door.
He flung himself on his bed and laughed till the tears ran down his cheeks and wetted his pillow.
"What will the toys do?"
asked Joe.
"Climb back up the tree to the land of toys," said Moonface, drying his eyes. "We'll see them out of the window. They won't interfere with us again."
After about an hour, the toys began to come past, slowly, as if they were tired. Not one of them tried to get into Moonface's house.
"They're afraid that their land will move away," said Silky. "Let's sit here and watch them all, and have a few google buns and pop biscuits."
"I'm so very sorry to have caused all this trouble," said the Saucepan Man in a humble voice. "I really thought, when I got into the land of toys, that it was the land of goodies, where you can just take anything you like without paying."
He looked so unhappy and sorry that everyone forgave him at once.
"Cheer up, Saucepan," said Moonface. "The land of goodies will soon come along, and we'll all go and visit it, not just you. And we'll have the grandest feast we've ever had in our lives. I say, Joe, you, Dick and Saucepan look awfully grand in your soldiers' uniforms. Are you always going to wear them?"
"Oh, gracious! I forgot we haven't got our proper clothes," said Joe. "We left them under a hedge near the fort."
"And I left my lovely kettles and saucepans in the fort," said Saucepan in a mournful voice. "I feel funny without them."
Just then 3 sailor dolls, the last of all the toys, climbed slowly up the tree. They were crying. Their suits were torn and soaking wet. Moonface opened his door.
"What's the matter?" he asked. "What's happened to you?" "Awful things," said the first sailor. "We were climbing up this tree when we came to a window and we all peeped in. A very angry pixie flew out and pushed us off the branch. The faraway tree was growing thorns just there and they tore our clothes to bits. And then a whole lot of washing water came pouring down the tree on top of us. We feel dreadful. If only we could get some new clothes."
"Listen," cried Joe suddenly. "How would you like to have our soldier uniforms? They're quite new and smart."
"Oh," said all the sailor dolls together. "Would you really give us those? We shall get into so much trouble if we go back like this."
"We'll give you them on one condition," said Joe. "You must find our things in the land of toys and throw them down to us."
"We can easily do that," promised the sailors.
So Joe, Dick and the Saucepan Man stripped off their uniforms and gave them to the sailor dolls, who dressed themselves in the red trousers, tunics and bearskin helmets. "Now, you will find our clothes for us, won't you?" said Joe. "We're trusting you, you see." "We're very trustable," said the dolls, and ran up the ladder after Joe had told them exactly where to find everything. Joe, Dick and Saucepan sat in their vests and pants and shivered a little, for the uniforms had been warm.
"Look, something's coming down the ladder," cried Moonface after a while, and they all ran out to see. "How quick the sailor dolls have been!"
2 sets of clothes tumbled down. Then came a clatter and clanging as kettles and saucepans came down too. Saucepan was delighted, and Silky helped to string them round him as usual.
"Now you look our dear old Saucepan again," said Silky.
The boys dressed too. Then Joe looked at Moonface's clock.
"We must go," he said. "Thanks for the pop biscuits and everything. Now, Saucepan, don't get into any more trouble."
"Bubble? Where's a bubble?"
said Saucepan, looking round.
They all laughed. "Come on," said Bessie. "Goodbye, Moonface. Goodbye, Silky." "Don't forget to come to the land of goodies with us," said Silky. "That really will be fun."
"We'll come," promised Bessie. One by one the 4 children slid swiftly down the slippery slip to the bottom of the tree. They shot out of the trap-door, gave the red squirrel the cushions, and set off home.
"I'm looking forward to our next adventure," said Dick. "It makes my mouth water when I think of the land of goodies. Hurrah!"
The land of goodies. The 4 children were rather naughty the next few days. Dick and Joe quarrelled, and they fell over when they began to wrestle with one another and broke a little table. Then Bessie scorched a tablecloth she was ironing, and Fanny tore a hole in her blue frock when she was blackberrying. "Really, you are all very careless lately," said their mother. "Joe, you will mend that table as best you can. Dick, you must help him. Fanny, sit down and mend that tear properly." Bessie had to wash the tablecloth to try and get the scorch marks out of it. "It's a pity all these things have happened this week," groaned Joe to Dick. "I'm afraid the land of goodies will come and go before we get there."
"Moonface and the others will be wondering what's happened to us," said Bessie, almost in tears.
They were. The land of goodies had come, and a most delicious smell kept coming down the ladder. Then Moonface heard that the land was going to move away the next afternoon.
"We said we'd wait for the children, but we don't want to miss going ourselves," he said to Silky. "We'd better send a note to them."
They sent it by the woodpecker, who had a hole in the tree for himself, and he flew off with it in his beak. He soon found the cottage and rapped at the window.
"A lovely woodpecker," cried Joe. "He's got a note for us."
He opened the window. Mother was there, ironing in the same room, and she looked most astonished to see such an unexpected visitor. Joe read the note and then showed it to the others. They all looked rather sad. "Tell Moonface that we've been naughty and can't come," Joe said to the woodpecker. The bird spread its wings, but Mother looked up and spoke. "Wait a minute," she said to the bird. Then she turned to Joe. "Read me the note," she said. Joe read it out loud. "Dear Joe, Bessie, Fanny and Dick, the land of goodies is here and goes tomorrow. We have waited and waited for you to come. If you don't come tomorrow, we shall have to go by ourselves. Can't you come? Love from Silky, Saucepan and Moonface." "The land of goodies?" said Mother in amazement. "Well, I never did hear of such funny happenings. I suppose there are lots of nice things to eat there, and that's why you want to go. Well, you certainly have been bad children, but you've done your best to put things right. You can go tomorrow morning."
"Mother! Oh, Mother, thank you!" cried the children. "Thank you, Aunt Polly," said Dick. "Tell Moonface we'll come as soon as we can tomorrow," said Joe to the listening woodpecker. He nodded his red splashed head and flew off. The children talked together excitedly. "I shan't have any breakfast," said Bessie. "It's not much good going to the land of goodies unless you're hungry." "That's a good idea," said Dick. "I think I won't have any supper tonight either." So when the time came for the 4 children to set off to the enchanted wood, they were all terribly hungry. They ran to the faraway tree and climbed up it in excitement. They got to Moonface's and shouted. He came running out of his treehouse in delight.
"Oh, good, good, good," he cried. "You are nice and early. Silky, they're here. Go down and call old Saucepan. He's with Mr. What's-his-name. I'm sure Saucepan would like to come too."
It wasn't long before 7 excited people were climbing up the ladder to the land of goodies. How they longed to see what it was like. Well, it was much better than anyone imagined. It was a small place, set with little crooked houses and shops, and every single house and shop was made of things to eat. The first house was extraordinary.
"Look at that!" cried Joe. "Its walls are made of sugar, and the chimneys are chocolate, and the window-sills are peppermint cream."
Everything seemed to be eatable. The children caught sight of trees and bushes and called out in the greatest excitement,
"Look, that tree's growing currant buns. And that one has got buds that are opening out into biscuits. It's a biscuit tree. And look at this one here. It's growing big, flat, white flowers like plates. And the middle of the flowers is full of jelly. Let's taste it."
They did, and it was jelly.
"I say," said Joe, "look at that yellow fence over there. Surely it isn't made of barley sugar."
It was. The children broke off big sticks and sucked them. It was the nicest they'd ever tasted. They saw a sausage roll shop. The rolls came tumbling one by one out of a machine. The handle was being turned by a most peculiar man. He was quite flat and brown, and had what looked like blackcurrants for eyes.
Do you know, I think he's a gingerbread man, whispered Joe to the others. They wandered into the next shop. It had lovely big iced cakes set out in rows.
Your name, please?
asked the funny little woman there, looking at Bessie, who had asked for a cake. Bessie, said the little girl in surprise, and there in the middle of the cake her name appeared in pink sugar letters. Of course, all the others wanted cakes too, just to see their names come.
We shall never be able to eat all these,
said Moonface. But you know, they tasted so delicious that it wasn't long before they all went. Into shop after shop went the children and the others, tasting everything they could see. They had tomato soup, poached eggs, ginger buns, chocolate fingers, ice creams, and goodness knows what else.
I simply can't eat anything more, said Silky at last.
Oh, Silky, don't stop,
said Dick. I can go on for quite a long time yet.
And do you know what he did? He broke off the knocker from somebody's front door. It was made of barley sugar, and he sucked it in delight. But the man whose knocker Dick had pulled off came running out.
"Hi! Hi!"
he cried angrily.
"Give me back my knocker!"
Dick went very red.
"I can't,"
he mumbled, with what was left of the knocker in his mouth. Then, seeing the man was very angry indeed, he ran away while the others went after him.
"Dick, you're greedy, really greedy," said Joe. "You ought to stop."
"We mustn't be here much longer anyway," said Moonface, panting. "It's almost time for this land to move on. Look, strawberries and cream."
The children stood and stared at such a strange sight. The strawberries grew by the hundreds, but each one had its own big daub of cream growing on it, ready to be eaten.
"They're even sugared," said Joe, picking one. "And, the cream is delicious."
They enjoyed the strawberries and cream, and then Joe had an idea.
"I say, what about taking some of these lovely goodies back with us?" he said. "What's-his-name would love a plum pie, and the angry pixie would like some of those jelly flowers, and Dame Washalot would like a treacle pudding."
"And Mother would like lots of things too," said Bessie joyfully. So they all began collecting puddings and pies and cakes. It was fun. The treacle pudding had so much treacle that it dripped all down Moonface's leg.
"You'll have to have a bath, Moonface," said Silky. "You're terribly sticky."
They all went to the hole that led through the cloud. It didn't take long to climb down the ladder and onto the branch outside Moonface's house. Dick came last, and he suddenly lost his footing and fell on top of the others below. He knocked the puddings, pies and cakes right out of their hands. Down they went, bumping from branch to branch. The children and the others stared after them in dismay. There came a very angry yell from below.
"Who's thrown a treacle pudding at me? Wait till I get them! It burst on my head! Oh, oh, oh!"
Then came an angry squealing from lower down.
Plum pie in my wash tub, sausage rolls in my wash tub, peppermints down my neck. Oh, you rascals up there, I'm coming up after you, so I am."
And from lower still came the voice of the angry pixie, and truly a very angry pixie indeed.
"Jelly on my nose, jelly in my pockets. Who's doing all this? Wait till I come up and tell them what I think."
"I say, I do believe they really are coming up," said Joe in alarm. "Look, isn't that what's-his-name?"
They all peered down the tree. Yes, it was what's-his-name climbing up, looking very angry. The Saucepan Man leaned over and one of his kettles came loose. It bounced from branch to branch and landed on poor old what's-his-name's big head. He gave a tremendous yell.
"What? Is it you, Saucepan, throwing all these things down the tree? What you want is a spanking, and you'll get it, and anybody else up there."
"A spanking?" said Dame Washalot's voice.
"A spanking!"
roared the angry pixie not far behind.
"Golly," said Joe in alarm. "It looks as if the land of spankings is about to arrive. I vote we go. You'd better shut your door, Moonface, and pretend to be asleep. Then maybe they'll think it's somebody up in the land of goodies that has been throwing all those things down."
"Dick ought to get the spanking," said Moonface. "He fell on top of us and sent all those goodies down the tree."
I'm going down the slippery slip with the children, said Silky, who was very much afraid of Mr. What's-his-name when he was in a temper. I can climb up to my house and lock myself in before all those angry people come down again. Saucepan, why don't you come too? Saucepan thought he would. So the children, Silky and Saucepan all slid down the slippery slip. Just in time, too, for Mr. What's-his-name came shouting up to Moonface's door as Joe, who was last, slid down. Moonface was lying on his bed pretending to be asleep. What's-his-name banged hard on the door. Moonface didn't answer. What's-his-name peeped in at the window.
Moonface, wake up! Wake up, I say!
What's the matter?
Said Moonface in a sleepy voice, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. Dame Washalot and the angry Pixie came up too. The Pixie had jelly all over him, and What's-his-name had treacle pudding down him. They were all very angry. They opened Moonface's door and went in.
Who was it that threw all those things down on us? Asked What's-his-name. Where's Saucepan? Did he throw that kettle? I'm going to spank him.
Whatever are you talking about? Said Moonface, pretending not to know. How sticky you are, What's-his-name?
And so are you,
yelled What's-his-name, suddenly seeing treacle shining all down Moonface's legs.
It was you who threw that pudding down on me. My word, I'll spank you hard.
Then all three of them went for poor Moonface, who got about 6 hard slaps. He rolled over to the slippery slip and slid down it in a fright. He shot out of the trap-door just in time to see Silky and Saucepan saying goodbye to the children.
I've been spanked,
wept Moonface.
All because I was sticky, so they thought I'd thrown all the goodies at them, and now I'm afraid to go back, because they'll all be waiting for me.
Poor Moonface, said Joe, and it was all Dick's fault. Listen, Silky can climb back to her house, but you and Saucepan had better come with us and stay the night. Mother won't mind.
All right,
said Moonface, wiping his eyes.
That will be fun.
They all went home together, and poor Dick didn't say a word. But how he did wish he could make up for all he'd done. A surprise visitor. The children's mother was rather astonished to see Moonface and Saucepan arriving at the cottage with the children.
Mother, may they stay the night? Asked Joe. They've been so good to us in lots of ways, and they don't want to go back to the tree tonight because somebody is waiting there to spank them.
Dear me, said Mother, even more surprised. Well, yes, they can stay. You and Dick must sleep downstairs on the sofa. If they like to help in the garden for a day or two, they can stay longer.
Ooh,
said Moonface, pleased.
That would be fine. I'm sure What's-his-name will have forgotten about spanking us if we can stay away a few days. Thank you very much. We will help all we can.
Would you like one of my very special kettles? Asked Saucepan gratefully. Or a fine big saucepan for cooking soup bones?
Thank you, said Mother, smiling. I could do with a strong little kettle, but let me pay you.
Certainly not, madam,
said Saucepan, hearing quite well for a change. He gave Mother a fine little kettle and a good strong saucepan. She was very pleased. It was fun having Moonface and Saucepan staying in the cottage, and they were both very good in the garden. When they had been there for 2 or 3 days, Silky came in a state of great excitement. She knocked at the door, and Joe opened it.
Oh, Joe, have you still got Moonface and Saucepan here? She asked. Well, tell them they must come back to the tree at once.
Gracious, what's happened? Said Joe. Everyone crowded to the door to hear what Silky had to say.
Well, you know the old woman who lives in a shoe, don't you? She said. Her land has just come to the top of the tree, and the old woman came down the ladder through the cloud to see Dame Washalot. And when she saw that Moonface's house was empty, she said she was going to live there. She said she was tired of looking after a pack of naughty children.
Oh, my,
said Moonface, looking very blue.
I don't like that old woman. She gives her children broth without any bread, and she whips them and sends them to bed when they're just the littlest bit bad. Couldn't you tell her that house in the tree is mine, and I'm coming back to it?
did tell her that, silly, said Silky. But do you suppose she took any notice of me? Not a bit.
Well, I never,
cried Moonface, his big round face getting redder and redder.
Just wait till I tell her a few things. I'm going this very minute.
I'll come with you, said Saucepan. Are you coming too, children?
Mother, Saucepan and Moonface have got to go back home, called Joe. May we go with them? We shan't be long. Very well, said Mother. Moonface and Saucepan went to say goodbye to her and thank her for having them. Then they and the 4 children and Silky sped off to the enchanted wood. They climbed up the tree quickly and at last came to Moonface's door. It was shut. Moonface banged on it so loudly that it shook. The door flew open and a cross-faced old woman glared out.
"Do you want to break my door down?"
she cried.
"'Tisn't your door,"
shouted Moonface.
"It's mine."
Well, I've taken this house now, said the old woman. I'm tired of all those naughty children, and I don't want to live in a shoe any more. I'm going to live by myself and have a good time. Dame Washalot is an old friend of mine, and she and I will have lots of chats together.
She slammed the door in the faces of everyone. Saucepan began to clash his pans and shout at the top of his voice.
Come out, you naughty old woman. Come and let Moonface have his house. Your children are hungry.
He was making such a tremendous noise that he didn't notice old Dame Washalot coming up the tree looking as black as thunder. She glared at the little company outside Moonface's house. She was short-sighted and didn't see who they were. She thought they were 7 of the old woman's children who had come down from the land above and were making themselves a nuisance.
"I'll teach you to shout and scream like that,"
said Dame Washalot in a fierce voice, and before anyone knew what was happening, they were all taken up one by one in Dame Washalot's strong arms and flung right up through the hole in the cloud into the land of the old woman who lived in a shoe. The land of the old woman. The children and the others were most surprised at being thrown up into such a funny land. It was quite small, not much larger than a big garden. It had a high wall all round to stop the children falling off the edge. In the middle was a most peculiar thing. "It's the shoe," said Joe. "Golly!" Everyone stared. It was as big as an ordinary house and had been made very cleverly indeed into a cottage. Windows were let into the side and a door had been cut out. A roof had been put on and chimneys smoked from it. A rose tree climbed about it and honeysuckle covered one side. "So that's the shoe where those naughty children live," said Bessie. "However did the old woman get such a big one?" "Well, it once belonged to a giant," said Silky. "The old woman did him a good turn and asked him for an old boot. She got her brother to make it into a house."
"Look at all those children," said Moonface. "They're not very well behaved."
About 20 boys and girls were playing round the house. They shouted and screamed, fought and punched one another. They suddenly saw Joe and the rest and ran up to them. They pulled Bessie's hair. They tugged at Saucepan's kettles. They made fun of Moonface. They dug Joe in the middle and pulled Dick's ears. They were very naughty and unkind.
"Now just you stop all this," said Moonface, looking fierce. "If you don't, I'll fetch the old woman."
"She isn't here, she isn't here,"
shouted the naughty children, dancing round in delight.
"She says she's going to go right away and leave us, and we're glad, glad, glad. Now we shall have bread with our soup. We'll sleep out of doors if we like, and we'll get out all the old woman's best clothes to dress up in."
"Whatever would she say to that?" said Bessie in horror, thinking what her own mother would say if she dressed up in her Sunday frocks.
"She'd be simply furious," cried the children. "But she's gone, so she won't know. Oh, we'll have a grand time now."
One of the children called to the others.
"Hi, I've opened a tin of pineapple. Come and taste it, it's lovely."
With screams of joy, the children rushed to the shoe. Joe said to the others,
I've got an idea, he said. What about telling the old woman about the children dressing up in her best clothes? She might rush back here then, and we could slip down the ladder, go to Moonface's house, and bolt the door on the inside.
That's a really good idea, said Silky. Joe, you go down and tell her.
Joe was rather nervous about it. Nobody really wanted to go and see the fierce old lady again. At last, Dick said he would go. He badly wanted to make up for all the silly things he'd done a few days before.
I'll go,
he said, and down the ladder he went. He banged hard at Moonface's door. The old woman opened it.
Old woman, do you want your best clothes? Began Dick. Because if...
My best clothes? I'd forgotten all about them, cried the old woman. Those children will be messing about with them. Boy, go to my wardrobe, get out all my clothes and bring them down here. You shall have a sweet if you do.
Well, I think...
began Dick. But the old woman wouldn't listen. She pushed him away and cried,
Go now! Don't stop to argue with me. Go at once.
Dick ran up the ladder and stuck his head out into the land above. He saw the naughty children coming out of the shoe, dressed up in the old woman's clothes, squealing with laughter, and how funny they looked in long skirts, shawls and bonnets. Dick grinned to himself and slipped down the ladder again. He banged at the door.
Well, have you brought my clothes?
Asked the old woman, opening the door.
You naughty boy, you haven't.
Please, old woman, I couldn't bring them, said Dick in his most polite voice. You see, your children are all dancing about wearing them, and they've opened your tins of pineapple, and they're...
Oh, the bad, naughty creatures,
cried the old woman. She gathered up her black skirts and climbed the ladder at top speed, with Dick going behind her. Then she saw her naughty children dancing about in her best Sunday clothes. She broke a stick from a nearby tree and ran after them.
So, you thought you could do what you liked, did you? She cried. You thought I would never come back. Well, here I am, and I'll soon show you how to be sorry.
She was so angry that she rushed round like a whirlwind and didn't notice that Joe, Silky and the rest were not her own children. They got whirled into the shoe with the others, about 25 or 6 of them. All the children began to howl and cry.
We're sorry we were naughty, old woman. We didn't mean to dress up in your clothes.
Oh, yes, you did,
said the old woman. She beckoned to Dick.
Come here, you bad boy.
Dick whispered to the others.
Look, I'll let her spank me, and while she's doing it, you creep out and run down to the ladder. Hurry up. I'll join you as soon as I can.
Dick went boldly up to the old woman.
Hold out your hands,
she said. Spank, spank. Poor Dick. He didn't like it at all. He began to howl as loudly as he could, so that the others could creep away without being heard. One by one they slipped out of the door and rushed to the hole, looking for the ladder that led down to the faraway tree.
I say, I believe this land is just about to move,
said Moonface, looking round. A peculiar wind had just got up. Very often, when the strange lands began to move away, this queer wind blew.
Quick, quick,
cried Silky. They all scrambled down the ladder, glad to be on the broad branch at the bottom. When they were safely there, Bessie began to cry.
Poor Dick will be left behind, she sobbed.
Everyone looked very sad. The land above the cloud began to make a strange noise.
It's moving on, said Moonface. We'll never see Dick again.
But just at that moment, someone came slipping and sliding down the ladder. Bump, bump, bump. And hey presto, there was good old Dick, in such a hurry that he had missed his footing and slid down the ladder from top to bottom.
Dick, we're so glad to see you, cried everyone. What happened? Well, the old woman spanked me, as you saw, grinned Dick. And then when I went to take my place, she saw you were all gone and sent me after you. I tore out and she came too. But I got to the ladder first, and now the land has moved on, so we're safe.
Moonface went into his house. Good old Moonface, said Joe. I'm glad he's got his home back again. Come on, we better go. We promised Mother we wouldn't be long. The Land of Magic Medicines. For a few days, the children had no time even to think of going to their friends in the faraway tree. Their mother was ill, and the doctor came every day. "Just let her lie in bed and keep her warm," he said to the two girls. "Give her what she likes to eat, and don't let her worry about anything." The children were upset. They loved their mother. "There's all that washing I had to do for Mrs. Jones," she said. "No, you girls are not to try and do it. It's too much for you." Moonface and Silky came to visit the children one morning and were very sorry to hear their mother was ill. "She worries so about the washing," said Bessie. "She won't let us two girls do it. I don't know what to do about it." "We can manage that for you," said Silky at once. "Old Dame Wash-a-lot will do it for nothing. It's the joy of her life to wash, wash, wash. I believe if she's got nothing dirty to wash, she washes clean things. Moonface and I will take it now and bring it back when it's finished." "Oh, thank you, Silky darling," said Bessie gratefully. Silky and Moonface went off with the basket. They took it to Dame Wash-a-lot, and how her face shone with joy when she saw such a lot of washing to be done. "This is good of you," she said, throwing it all into her enormous wash-tub. "This is what I really enjoy. I'll have it all washed and ironed by this evening." That night Silky and Moonface went to see if the washing was finished, and it was all done up in the basket, ready to take away. "I've had a fine time," said the old dame. Silky tied a rope to the basket so that she might let it down the tree. "Thank you very much indeed," she said. "The person who usually does this washing is ill in bed. It's such a pity. I wish I could make her well." "Why, Silky, the Land of Magic Medicines is coming tomorrow," said the old dame. "You could get any medicine you like there, and your friend would soon be better." "That's an awfully good idea," said Silky joyfully, letting down the basket bit by bit. Moonface had gone to the bottom of the tree to catch it. "I'll tell Moonface, and maybe he and I could go and get some." She slipped down the tree and told Moonface what the old dame had said. Moonface beamed. "That's good news for the children," he said. "Come on, we'll hurry and tell them." The children were delighted to have the washing back so quickly. Dick set off with it to Mrs. Jones. Bessie ran to tell her mother she needn't worry any more about it. Silky told Joe and Fanny about the Land of Magic Medicines coming the next day. They listened in surprise. "Well, I vote we go there," said Joe. "I'd made up my mind we'd none of us go while Mother was ill, but if there's a chance of getting something to make her better, we'll certainly go. One of you girls must stay behind with Mother, though." So it was arranged that Joe, Dick and Bessie should meet at Moonface's house early the next morning while Fanny stayed home. They set off and arrived at the top of the tree very soon afterwards. Moonface and Silky were waiting for them. "Is old Saucepan coming?" asked Joe. "Hi, Saucepan! Do you want to come?" shouted Moonface, leaning down the tree. Saucepan was with What's-his-name. For a wonder he heard what Moonface said and shouted back, "Yes, I'll come, but where to?" "Up the ladder!" yelled Moonface. "Hurry!" So Saucepan came with them, and in a little while they all stood in the Land of Magic Medicines. It was just as peculiar as every land that came to the top of the faraway tree. It didn't seem to be a land at all. It looked like a great big factory, a place where all kinds of pills, medicines, bandages and so on were made. Goblins and gnomes, pixies and fairies were as busy as can be. In one corner, a goblin was stirring a yellow mixture into a purple basin. Bessie looked at it. "It's a kind of ointment," she said to the others. "I wonder what it's for."
"It's for making crooked legs straight," said the goblin, stirring hard. "Do you want some?"
"Well, I don't know anybody with crooked legs," said Bessie. "Thank you all the same." A pixie nearby was pouring some sparkling green medicine into bottles shaped like bubbles. It made a funny singing noise as it went in. "What's that for?" asked Joe.
"Whoever takes this will always have shining, smiling eyes," said the pixie.
"I'll have some," said Joe.
"Oh, your eyes are smiley eyes," said the pixie.
Dick called to the others. "I say, look!" he cried. "Here's some simply marvellous pills. Watch them being made." First of all, the pills were enormous, as large as footballs. Then a goblin splashed them with what looked like moonlight from a watering can. Then they went as small as marbles. Then he blew on them gently, and they went as small as green peas, and each one jumped into a pill-box with a ping, ping, ping till the box was full. "What are they for?" asked Dick.
"To make short people tall," said the goblin. "Some people hate being short. Well, these pills are made of big things. The shadow of a mountain, the height of a tree, the crash of thunder, things like that. And they have the power to make anything or anyone grow."
"Could I have some?" asked Dick eagerly.
"Take a box full,"
said the goblin. Dick took it and read what was written on the lid. Growing pills, one to be taken 3 times a day. Now, Dick was not very tall for his age, and he had always wanted to be big. He looked longingly at the pills. If he took 3 at once, maybe he would grow taller. He popped 3 into his mouth and sucked them. They tasted so horrid that he swallowed them all in a hurry. And goodness, what a surprise when the others turned to speak to Dick. He was taller than their father. He was as tall as the ceiling in their cottage. He towered above them. "Dick," cried Joe, "you're enormous. How in the world do you think you'll ever get down the hole in the cloud?" "Oh, do something to help me," begged Dick. The goblins and pixies around saw how fast Dick was growing. "He'll break through the roof. He'll bring it down on top of us. Quick, stop him growing." Some peculiar adventures. Dick had to bend down so that his head wouldn't touch the roof. The little people in the medicine factory rushed about yelling and shouting, "Fetch a ladder! Climb up it and give him some go-away pills! Quick, quick!" Somebody got a ladder and leaned it up against poor Dick. A pixie ran up it carrying a box of pills and shouted,
"Open your mouth!"
Dick opened his mouth and the pixie threw 3 pills inside. At once Dick began to grow small. Down he went and down until he was his own size again. He grinned at them all. "Just the same old cheerful Dick," said Bessie. "Oh, you gave us such a fright." Saucepan was very deaf because there was such a noise going on all the time. Fires sizzling under big pots, pans being stirred with a clatter, and it was because of this that he made his big mistake. He stopped by a goblin who was pouring a beautiful blue liquid into a little jar. It shone so brightly that it caught Saucepan's eye at once. "That's lovely," he said to the goblin. "What's it for?"
"To make a nose grow," said the goblin.
"To make a rose grow?" said Saucepan in delight. "Oh, I'd like some of that."
"I said to make a nose grow," said the goblin.
"I heard you the first time," said Saucepan. "It would be lovely to be able to grow roses. Do I have to drink it?"
"Yes, if you want your nose to grow,"
said the goblin. So Saucepan took a jar of the medicine and drank it all up before the goblin could stop him.
"Now I'll make roses grow out of my kettles and pans," said Saucepan, pleased. "Grow, roses, grow."
But they didn't, of course. It was his poor old nose that grew. It suddenly shot out, long and pink, and Saucepan stared at it in surprise. "Saucepan, what has happened to your nose?" cried Joe. "It's as big as an elephant's trunk."
"He would drink it," said the goblin in dismay. "I told him it was to make a nose grow, not a rose. He's quite mad."
"No, he's just deaf," said Joe. "Oh, poor Saucepan. He'll have to tie his nose round his waist soon. It's down to his feet already."
I can cure it, said the goblin with a grin. I've got a disappearing medicine. I'll just rub his nose with it till it's back to the right size.
It was blue ointment, and the nose began to disappear as soon as the ointment touched it. The goblin went on rubbing until there was nothing left but Saucepan's own pointed nose.
Cheer up, it's gone, said the goblin,
and everyone was so pleased.
Now look, said Joe. I vote we try and get this medicine for Mother. Fanny's waiting for us to get back, and I really think we'd better go before Dick and Saucepan do anything funny again.
What medicine do you want? Asked a goblin kindly. What's wrong with your mother?
We don't really know, said Dick. She just lies in bed and looks white and weak, and she worries dreadfully about everything.
Then I should take a bottle of get-well medicine, said the goblin. That will be just the thing.
It sounds fine, said Joe.
The goblin poured a bubbling yellow liquid into a big bottle and gave it to Joe, who put it carefully into his pocket. "Thank you," he said. "Now come along, everyone." They were not far from the hole in the cloud and were soon climbing down the ladder. Joe was careful of the bottle in his pocket. "I'm simply longing to give dear old Mother a dose of this magic medicine. It will be lovely to see her looking well again and rushing round the house like she always did." What's-his-name has some queer news. Fanny was delighted to have Joe, Bessie and Dick back. "Mother doesn't seem quite so well," she said. "Did you get some medicine for her?" "Yes," said Joe, showing Fanny the big bottle. "It's a get-well medicine. Let's give Mother some now." They went into Mother's bedroom, and Joe took a glass and poured out 2 teaspoonfuls of the strange medicine. "I hope it's all right, Joe dear," said Mother, holding her hand out for it. "I must say it smells delicious, like plum tarts cooking in the oven." It tasted simply lovely too, Mother said. She lay back on her pillows and smiled at the children. "Yes, I do believe I feel better already," she said. Well, that medicine was simply marvellous. By the next morning she was eating a huge breakfast and laughing and joking with everyone. By the time the bottle was only half finished, Mother was up and about again. A whole week went by, and the children heard nothing of their friends in the faraway tree, but they were very busy helping their parents. One evening, when they were in bed, they heard a little rattling sound against their windows. The boys went into the girls' room to see if they were awake. They were looking out of the window. "It isn't Silky or Moonface," whispered Bessie. "I think it's old What's-his-name." They put on their dressing gowns and crept downstairs. In the garden they whispered loudly, "Who's there? Who is it?"
"It's me, What's-his-name,"
said a voice, and Mr. What's-his-name came to them. He looked terribly worried. "What's the matter?" asked Joe.
"Have you seen Silky, Moonface or Saucepan lately?" asked What's-his-name.
"Not since we all went to the land of magic medicines," said Joe. "Why, aren't they in the faraway tree?"
"They've disappeared," said What's-his-name. "I haven't seen them for days. They went and never even said goodbye."
"What could have happened to them?" asked Bessie. "They must have gone up into some land that moved away from the top of the tree."
"No, that's not it," said What's-his-name. "The same land has been there ever since the land of medicines moved away. It's the land of tempers. I'm quite sure Moonface and the others wouldn't visit it, because it's well known that everyone there is always in a bad temper. No, they've gone, vanished, disappeared. Makes me very, very sad."
"Oh, What's-his-name, this is very worrying," said Bessie. "Whatever can we do?"
"I suppose you wouldn't come back to the faraway tree and help me look for them?" asked What's-his-name. "I feel so lonely there. And, you know, somebody else has taken Moonface's house, and Silky's house too. They've come from the land of tempers, and I simply daren't go near them."
"Good gracious, this is very bad news," said Joe. "We can't possibly come tonight, as Mother likes us to get the breakfast since she's been ill. But we'll come as soon as we can after breakfast.
Will that do?"
"Oh, yes," said What's-his-name gratefully. "That's marvellous. I shan't go back to the tree tonight. May I sleep in that shed over there?"
"You can sleep on the sofa downstairs," said Joe. "Come in with us and I'll get you a rug." So What's-his-name slept on the sofa. He snored rather, and Mother woke up once and wondered what the noise was. She thought it must be the cat, and soon went off to sleep again. Next morning the children asked if they might go with What's-his-name. They explained what had happened. "I'm not sure that I like it," said Mother. "I don't want anything to happen to you." "I'll look after everyone," said Joe. "You can trust me, Mother, really you can. We'll be back soon." So Mother said they might go. They all set off to the enchanted wood, feeling rather excited. Whatever could have happened to Silky and the others? They climbed the faraway tree and came to Silky's house. It was shut. From inside came a stamping and a roaring.
"That's one of the people from the land of bad tempers," said What's-his-name in a whisper. "I daren't knock at the door."
"Well, let's go on up to Moonface's," said Joe, feeling he didn't want to knock at the door either. So up they went. Moonface's door was shut too, and from inside came a banging and shouting. "Golly, they have got bad tempers, haven't they?" said Joe. "Let's peep in at the window." So they all peeped in and saw a round, fat little man with large ears, a shock of black hair and fierce eyes. He was looking for something on the floor.
"Where's it gone?" he shouted. "You bad, wicked button! Where did you roll to? Don't you know I want to put you on my coat again? I'll stamp you into 100 bits when I find you."
Joe giggled. "If he does that, it won't be much good trying to sew it on his coat," he said. Just then the black-haired man looked up and saw the 4 children. He flew to the door in a rage and flung it open.
"How dare you pry and peep?"
he yelled, stamping first one foot and then the other.
"How dare you look into my window?"
"It isn't your window," said Joe. "This house belongs to a friend of ours called Moonface."
"Pooh! You don't know what you're talking about," cried the bad-tempered man. "I'm Sir Stamp-a-Lot, and this is my house. My cousin Lady Yellow-Round has taken the house a bit lower down. We've come to live in this tree."
"This is my friend's house," said Joe firmly. "Now you just tell us what has happened to Moonface. Yes, and Silky, and the old Saucepan Man too."
"Moonface said I could have his house whilst he went to live for a while in the land of tempers," said Sir Stamp-a-Lot, doing a bit more stamping. "Silky said the same, and the old Saucepan Man went with them." "I don't believe you," said What's-his-name suddenly. "Moonface told me the land of tempers had come, and he said nothing in the world would make him go there. You're telling fibs."
That sent Sir Stamp-a-Lot into such a rage that he nearly stamped the bark off the tree branch he stood on.
"How dare you talk to me like that?" he cried. "I'll pull your hair out, I'll pinch your noses, I'll scratch your ears."
"What a nice, kind, pleasant person you are," said Joe. "What a sweet, charming friend you would make." This made Sir Stamp-a-Lot so angry that he kicked hard at Joe, who dodged. Stamp-a-Lot lost his balance. He fell down through the tree, yelling loudly. "Quick," said Joe. "We'll pop into Moonface's house and see if there's any message from him." Wherever could their 3 friends be? It was too puzzling for words. The Land of Tempers. The 4 children and Mr. What's-his-name hunted in every corner of Moonface's house, but there was no message anywhere from their friends. "I say, that's old Stamp-a-Lot coming back," said Fanny. "I can hear him shouting. Let's get out quick." "We can go down the slippery slip," said Joe. But he was wrong. The slippery slip was stuffed up with all kinds of things, cushions, boughs, carpets, leaves, and nobody could possibly get down it. The children were all staring at it, puzzled, when Sir Stamp-a-Lot came back. And my goodness, what a rage he was in. He came bellowing like a bull.
"How dare you go into my house?" he stormed. "How dare you pry into my business? I'll throw you out! I'll throw you out!"
He tried to get hold of Fanny, but Joe and Dick stopped him. "We're 5-1, said Joe. "You might as well keep your temper, or we may do a bit of throwing out too. We're going because we can only get fibs out of you, and it's quite plain that our friends are not here. But you'll feel very sorry for yourself when we do find our friends and all come back to tell you what we think." Stamperlot was furious. He began to throw things after the children and what's-his-name as soon as they had gone out of the house. Crash! That was a picture. Bang! That was a chair. "Oh dear, poor Moonface won't find a single thing in his house when he gets home," said Joe, dodging a soup plate that came flying past his head. "Now what shall we do next?" "Perhaps we'd better go down to Silky's house and see if we can find out anything from Lady Yellerround, or whatever her name is." Nobody really wanted to see Lady Yellerround, but they saw her before they expected to. As they climbed down to where Dame Washalot lived, they heard a fierce quarrel going on.
"You emptied your dirty washing down on me just as I was going shopping,"
yelled an angry voice.
You did.
Then came Dame Washalot's voice.
I did I? Well, I'm glad. If people can't look out for my washing water, it's their own fault. Look how wet I am, look at me,
came the other voice.
I don't want to look at you. You're a most unpleasant person, said Dame Washalot. Now look out, here comes some more water.
There was a sound of splashing, and then squeals and screams as Lady Yellerround got the whole lot on top of her. The children began to giggle. They climbed down to where Dame Washalot was standing by her empty tub, grinning as she looked down the tree. Lady Yellerround was hurriedly climbing down, dripping wet, her shopping basket still in her hand. "Dame Washalot, have you heard anything about Silky and the others?" asked Bessie.
"Not a thing," said the old dame. "All I know is that bad-tempered creature says that Silky said she might have her house because she, Silky, wanted to go and live in the land of tempers, a thing I don't believe at all, for a sweeter-tempered person than little Silky you could never find."
"It's awfully funny," said Joe, frowning. "Oh, we'd better just pop up into the land of tempers to see if by any chance Silky, Moonface and Saucepan have gone there."
"That's dangerous," said Dame Washalot. "Once you lose your temper, you have to live there always, and you might easily lose it with a cross lot of people who live there."
"It does sound dangerous," said Joe, "but I think we could all keep our tempers. Well, we'd better go now." So up the tree they went, through the hole in the cloud, and into the land of tempers. Well, it was a funny land. There was so much shouting and quarrelling going on, such a smashing of windows by people throwing stones, such a stamping and yelling. "Goodness, I vote we don't stay here long," said Joe, dodging to miss a stone someone had thrown. "Look, let's ask that man over there if he's seen Silky or the others." So he asked him, but he glared at them and answered rudely, "Don't come bothering me with your silly questions. Can't you see I'm in a hurry?" He pushed Joe roughly, and the little boy at once felt angry. He was just about to push the man roughly too, when Fanny whispered to him,
"Joe, don't lose your temper. Smile, quickly smile."
So Joe made himself smile, for he knew that no one can really lose his temper when he's smiling. The man glared at him and went away. "Hi there," said Joe. "Do you know anything about our friends Silky, Moonface and Saucepan?" The boy he called to stopped and put out his tongue.
"Yeah," he said. "Do you suppose I'm here to answer your questions, Fanny Face?"
"No, I don't," said Joe, "but I thought perhaps you might be polite enough to help me." The boy made rude faces at all of them, and then pulled Fanny's hair very sharply before he ran off. Dick and Joe felt very angry and began to run after the boy, shouting.
"Dick, Joe, come back!" cried what's-his-name. "You're losing your tempers again."
"So we are," said the boys, and they stopped and made themselves look pleasant. They all walked on, telling themselves that they must remember, whatever happens, not to lose their tempers. They met a very grand-looking fellow, wearing a gold chain about his shoulders. They thought he must be one of the head men of the Land of Tempers. Nobody liked to speak to him, but suddenly Fanny called out,
"Do you know where Sir Stamp-a-Lot and Lady Yellow-Round are?"
The haughty-looking man stopped in surprise.
"No, I don't," he said. "They've disappeared and I'm very angry about it. Do you know where they are?"
"Yes, I do,"
said Fanny boldly.
"Where are they, then?"
asked the grand man.
"I'll tell you the answer to your question if you'll answer one of mine," said Fanny.
"Very well, then,"
said the man.
"Have our friends Silky, Moonface and Saucepan come to live here for a while?" asked Fanny.
"Certainly not," said the man. "I've never heard of them. No one is allowed to live here unless they first lose their tempers and then get permission from me to take a house. And now, tell me where Stamp-a-Lot and Yellow-Round are."
"They have escaped from your land and are now living in the Faraway Tree," said Fanny.
"But they're not allowed to do that," cried the head man. "How dare they? I didn't even know we were near the Faraway Tree. Wait till I catch them. I'll shake them till their teeth rattle."
"Well, that would be very nice," said Fanny. "Goodbye, we're going."
The others joined her as she ran towards the hole in the cloud. "How brave and clever you are," said Joe. "I should never have thought of all that. I'm quite sure that Silky and the others aren't up here." They all climbed down the ladder to the tree, thankful to leave behind the horrid land. They went to Silky's house and peeped in at the window. Lady Yellow-Round wasn't there, but the door was locked and the key had been taken. Bother! A most exciting time. As the children stood gloomily outside Silky's house, a voice called to them from further down.
"Is that you, what's-his-name? Any news of our missing friends?"
"That's the angry pixie," said Joe. "Let's go down and talk to him." The angry pixie was looking very miserable.
"I can't understand all this mystery," he said. "I saw Silky and the others a few days ago, and then they suddenly disappear like smoke without a cry or a yell. It's funny."
"We've just been up in the Land of Tempers," said Fanny, "but they're not there."
"I thought of going up there to see," said the angry pixie, "but I was so afraid I'd lose my temper and have to stay there always. You know what a temper I've got."
"Yes," said Joe. "You certainly mustn't dream of going up there. You'd never come back." They sat there, looking at one another, and then they all pricked up their ears. They could hear a very peculiar noise. Boom, boom, boom. Knock, knock, knock. Boom, boom, boom. "Whatever's that?" said Fanny, looking all round. "And where is it coming from?"
"I can't imagine," said the angry pixie. "I keep on hearing it. I heard it yesterday and last night and this morning. It just goes on and on."
Everyone listened. The noise stopped and then went on again. Boom, boom, boom. Knock, knock, knock. "Where does it come from?" said Bessie.
"From the inside of the tree," said What's-his-name, listening hard. "I'm sure of that."
Do you possibly suppose that it might be Silky and the others somewhere inside the tree?" said Fanny suddenly.
Boom, boom, boom. Knock, knock, knock. There it was again.
"I believe Fanny's right. I think Silky, Moonface and Saucepan are prisoners inside the slippery slip. Stamp-a-Lot must have pushed them down there and then stuffed up the hole with all those things," said What's-his-name.
"But they would have shot out of the trapdoor at the bottom," said Dick.
"We'll go down and open it and see if anything has been put there to stuff that up too," said Joe. "Come on, everyone." So they all went down to the bottom of the tree to where the trapdoor was. Joe opened it. He looked inside and then gave a shout. "This end is all stuffed up too. These two horrid people from the Land of Tempers have got Silky and the others in there, I'm sure. Look, there's all kinds of things stuffed in here.
The poor things can't get up or down. They're trapped. Well, let's pull everything out and set them free, said Dick, and he tugged at a great ball of moss, but it wouldn't move. Everyone had a turn at tugging and pulling, but it was no use at all. Not a thing would move.
They've stuffed everything in and then put a spell on it to make it stay where it is, said What's-His-Name at last. It's no good. We'll never be able to move a thing. Look, there's Lady Yellowround coming back from her shopping. We'll just see if we can't make her do something about this.
But that wasn't any good either. Lady Yellowround pretended that she didn't know anything about the stopped-up hole.
What's the good of shouting at me and asking me something I don't know anything about? She said. You go and ask old Stamp-A-Lot. He'll tell you what you want to know.
No, he won't, said Joe. He's just as big a fibber as you are. Anyway, no one wanted to see Stamp-A-Lot again. He was such a bad-tempered person. They all climbed back to the Angry Pixie's house, sat down and looked gloomily at each other. Can't get in at the top of the slippery slip and can't get in at the bottom, said Joe. How in the world can we rescue poor Silky and the others? It's simply dreadful.
They'll be starving,
said Fanny, beginning to cry.
Oh, Joe, do think of something.
But nobody could think of anything at all. It was only when the woodpecker flew by to go to his hole in the tree that any idea came, and then Joe jumped up with his eyes shining. I know, he cried. Let's ask the woodpecker to help us.
But how could a bird help?
Said Dick. Well, a woodpecker pecks holes in wood to make his nest, said Joe. I've seen them pecking hard with their strong beaks. They make a kind of drumming noise and can peck out quite a big hole in no time. If we asked him, I'm sure the woodpecker could peck a hole at the back of this room, right into the slippery slip, and then we could pull Silky, Moonface and Saucepan through the hole.
Oh, that really does sound a marvellous idea, said Fanny, beaming. Let's call him now.
So they went outside onto a big branch of the faraway tree and called to the woodpecker. Woodpecker, come here a minute. The woodpecker stared round in surprise. He was cleaning his wing feathers by running each one carefully through his beak. He was a lovely bird with his bright red-splashed head. He spread his wings and flew down. What's the matter? He asked. Joe told him. The bird listened with his head on one side and his bright eyes shining. Do you think you could possibly help us to rescue Silky and the others by pecking a hole at the back of the Angry Pixie's house? Said Joe, when he came to the end of his story. You have such a strong beak. Yes, I know I have, said the woodpecker. The only thing is, I generally only peck rotten wood. That's easy to peck away, you know. It just falls to pieces. But good growing wood like the trunk of the faraway tree, well, that's different. That's very hard indeed. It would take me ages to peck a large hole through that. Oh dear, sighed Joe. I'm so disappointed. We daren't let Silky and the others stay in the slippery slip too long in case they starve. There's nothing to eat down there, you know. Whatever are we to do? Everybody thought hard. It was the woodpecker who had an idea first. I know, he said. I could fetch my cousins who live in the enchanted wood in another tree, and maybe, if there were 3 or 4 of us, all pecking hard together, we could make a good hole quite quickly. I know I couldn't make one by myself without taking 2 or 3 days, but a lot of us working together might do it easily. Oh, good, cried everyone. Go and get your cousins, there's a dear. Hurry. The woodpecker flew off. Everyone waited impatiently. They heard the noise from the inside of the tree again. Boom, boom, boom. Knock, knock, knock.
Poor things, said Bessie, tears in her eyes. It must be so dreadful inside there in the dark, with nothing to eat or drink.
After about 10 minutes, the woodpecker came back, and with him he brought 5 others. They were all woodpeckers, with bright red-splashed heads, strong-looking birds with powerful beaks. Oh, splendid! Cried Joe, and he took them all into the Angry Pixie's little house. Peck away at the back here. The 6 birds stood in a row and began to peck as close to one another as they could. Peck, peck, peck. They pecked so hard and so very fast that they made a curious drumming noise that echoed through the little house. Rrrr! They pecked hard for about an hour and then stopped for a rest. Joe pressed close to see how they were getting on. To his joy, he saw that a small hole had been pecked right through into the slippery slip. He asked the angry pixie for a torch and shone it through the hole. Yes, there was no doubt about it. The woodpeckers had got right through the tree trunk just there.
"Now you've only got to make the hole bigger," cried Joe joyfully. "Peck away, woodpeckers, peck away. You are doing marvellously."
Everything comes right. After a good rest, the 6 woodpeckers set to work again, and everyone watched the hole getting bigger and bigger. Then a voice floated up, singing a mournful song.
2 kettles for Silky, 2 saucepans for me, 2 dishes for Moonface, we're sad as can be.
"That's the old Saucepan Man," said Joe in delight, "telling us they're all there. Move aside, woodpeckers."
He stuck his head through the hole and yelled loudly,
"Silky, Moonface, Saucepan, we're going to rescue you. We'll pull you through a hole we're making at the back of the Angry Pixie's room."
There was a squeal of delight from Silky, a shout from Moonface, and a clatter of pans from Saucepan.
"We're coming! We're coming!"
yelled Moonface.
"We've got a rope to come up by."
Rrrr, rrrr, went the woodpecker's strong beaks, and the hole grew larger and larger. Joe leaned through into the slippery slip. He saw a light gleaming a little way down and noticed a rope shaking nearby, as if someone was holding on to it.
"They're coming up," he said to the others. "They've got a light of some sort too. Oh, it's a candle."
Moonface at last hauled himself up to the hole. His round face looked white and rather worried, but he gave Joe a grin as usual.
"Help Silky through first," he said.
She looked pale too, but how glad she was to see her friends. She flung her arms round Bessie and Fanny, and they all cried tears of joy down one another. Then Moonface squeezed through the hole, and last of all the old Saucepan Man, though he had to take off a few pans before he could get through.
"We never thought we'd be rescued," said Moonface. "We'd quite given up hope."
"But how did you get down there?" said Joe. "What happened?"
"I'll tell you about it," said Moonface.
Everyone settled down to hear his story.
"One morning this week, Silky, Saucepan and I were sitting up in my house talking. Suddenly we saw 2 people from the land of Tempers looking in at us."
"Yes, Sir Stamperlot and Lady Yellow-Round," said Joe. "We know them." "And they wanted your house," cried Dick.
"Yes," said Moonface. "They'd been down the tree and seen that Silky's house was empty and had taken that for themselves. At least Yellow-Round had. Stamperlot meant to have mine."
"They said they had stopped up the slippery slip and were going to make us prisoners in the slide," said Silky.
"Well, you can guess how frightened we were," said Moonface. "But old Saucepan heard it all because Stamperlot shouted so loudly, and the clever old thing began to stuff his kettles and saucepans with food from my larder, and some candles too, and matches, and a rope."
"So we had plenty of food," said Silky, giving Saucepan a hug.
"Saucepan managed to tie the rope onto something, so we had that to climb up and down on if we wanted to," said Moonface. "And we found a little cubby hole halfway down where we could sit and eat and drink."
"What are we going to do about turning Stamperlot and Yellow-Round out of our houses?" said Silky. "We can't all live with the angry pixie. His house is too small."
Just as she said that, there came the sound of shouting and yelling way up the tree. Everyone listened.
"That's Yellow-Round, I'm sure," said Silky. "Let's go and see what's happening."
About 8 people from the land of Tempers, with the head man leading them, had come down to capture Stamperlot and Yellow-Round. They had easily found Stamperlot because he was asleep in Moonface's house. Yellow-Round tried to escape, but she slipped and hung by 1 foot from a branch, yelling and squealing because she was so afraid of falling. The head man picked her up by the foot and dragged her up the tree like that, bumping her as he went. Yellow-Round was in a terrible rage, but nobody took any notice.
"I won't go back to the land of tempers," she yelled. I won't!
But she had to. Up the ladder she was carried, upside down, and Stamp-a-Lot was pushed up too.
"Serves them right," said Moonface. "Now let's go up to my house."
He was sad to see the place so untidy, and so many of his things broken. Everyone helped him to put it right. Then they all looked at the stuffed-up slippery slip.
"The spell put on it will have gone now that those two horrid people have left," said Moonface. "We can pull everything out."
He called to a sparrow sitting outside.
"Hi, little brown bird. Fly down to the squirrel and tell him to clear the slide at the bottom of the tree, will you?"
So it wasn't long before the hole was free of all the things that stuffed it up. Moonface grinned at the children.
"Well, everything's all right again," he said. "I'm so happy. It's lovely to have good friends like you."
"We'd better go home now," said Joe. "We've been away a long time."
"Hark," said Moonface. "I can hear the land of tempers moving off."
Sure enough, there came the curious creaking, groaning noise that the strange lands always made when they went. "What land will come next, I wonder?" said Joe.
"I know what it will be," said What's-his-name. "The land of presents is due tomorrow." "Ooh," said Moonface, his eyes shining. "We must all go to that. It's a marvellous land. We can get as many presents as we like, just as if it was our birthday. Come tomorrow, will you? I can get some new carpets and things. Stamp-a-Lot spoilt so many of my belongings."
"We'll come," said Joe. "We'll all come. Rather." The Land of Presents. Next day, all the 4 children woke up feeling excited. It was so lovely when a really nice land was at the top of the faraway tree. "I wonder who gives the presents, and if you can choose them," said Fanny. They set off about 11 o'clock, when they had done all their work. It was so lovely to think that Silky, Moonface and Saucepan were safe again and coming to enjoy the land of presents with them. Perhaps What's-his-name and the angry pixie would come too. Well, everyone in the faraway tree had heard that the land of presents was at the top that day, and dear me, what a lot of people were steadily climbing up that morning. Brownies from the wood below, pixies and elves, even rabbits from their holes. The angry pixie's house was empty. He had gone already. Dame Washalot had gone, and no water came pouring down the tree as the children climbed up. "What a crowd there'll be," said Joe happily. "I hope we're not too late." "Oh, goodness, let's hurry," said Dick in alarm. Moonface, Silky and Saucepan were waiting impatiently for them.
"Hurry, hurry," cried Silky. "The land of presents goes in an hour. It never stays long. Quick, quick."
Up the ladder they all went, talking and laughing in excitement. And my goodness me, what a wonderful land it was! There were Christmas trees hung with presents of all kinds. There were bran tubs full of exciting parcels. You had to dip in your hand for those. There were tables spread with the loveliest things. And oh, the chattering and giggling that went on as people chose their presents and went off with them. Dick marched up to a Christmas tree because he saw hanging on it a most wonderful box of chocolates. A goblin was in charge, and he smiled at Dick.
"I want that box of chocolates," said Dick.
Who is it for?
asked the goblin, getting out some scissors to cut it down.
"For myself," said Dick.
The goblin put away his scissors and shook his head gravely.
This is the land of presents, he said, not the land of take what you want. You can only get things here to give to other people. I'm sorry, this isn't a selfish land at all.
Dick looked very gloomy. He couldn't get anything for himself then, and he had so wanted the chocolates. He saw a lovely blue necklace hanging on another tree, and he thought of Fanny. She'd badly wanted a blue necklace to go with her best blue frock. He went up to the goblin in charge of the tree.
"May I have that blue necklace to give to Fanny?" he asked.
Where is she?
said the goblin, getting out his scissors.
Call her.
Fanny, come here, cried Dick. I've got something for you.
She came running up. The goblin handed the blue necklace to Dick, and he gave it to Fanny.
Put it round my neck for me and do up the clasp, she said. Oh, Dick, thank you. It's lovely. Now, what present would you like me to get for you? Oh, Fanny, I'd like that big box of chocolates, said Dick, beaming all over his face. She asked the goblin there for it and gave it to Dick. He undid the box and offered it to Fanny. Have a chocolate, he said. Well, as soon as the children knew how to set about getting the presents, they had a wonderful time. All except Saucepan.
What would you like for a present?
He asked Bessie.
Oh, Saucepan, I'd so like a frock, she said.
Well, Saucepan thought she said clock, and off he went to find the biggest one in the land. It was a grandfather clock, and everyone stared in surprise as he came up with it on his back.
Saucepan, I said frock, not a clock,
said Bessie, trying not to laugh. Poor Saucepan, he simply didn't know what to do with the clock after that, so he left it in a field, striking all by itself, very solemnly. Now tell me, Saucepan, said Joe, what do you want for a present?
Some more kettles and saucepans,
he answered at once. So Joe went to a bran tub. He put in his hand and brought out 2 shining kettles and 2 fine saucepans. The Saucepan Man was very pleased indeed. He put one of the new saucepans on for a hat. Then Dick got a toy sweet shop for Bessie. She was delighted. She got a fine aeroplane for Joe that flew from his hand and cleverly came back to it again. Joe got a new hat for What's-his-name with a yellow feather in it. What's-his-name got a pair of silver shoes for Silky, and she put them on at once.
Are we allowed to take anything home for our mother and father? Joe asked Moonface.
Of course, as long as you say it's for them and no one else, said Moonface.
So Joe went to where a Christmas tree was hung with pipes and tobacco, and he got a grand new pipe and a tin of tobacco for his father. And Bessie got a large new purse for her mother. Suddenly Joe looked at his watch. It's almost 12 o'clock, he said. The land of presents will be moving off in a minute. We'd better go. Golly, what a lovely lot of things we've all got. Once down the ladder to the faraway tree, they said goodbye to Moonface and the others. Then, with their presents on their knees so they wouldn't break, one by one they shot off down the slippery slip. What a lovely adventure, said Bessie as she reached the bottom. I hope it won't be the last. It won't, because the faraway tree is still there. But there's no time to tell you any more. There they all go through the enchanted wood, carrying their lovely presents. What a lucky lot of children they are, to be sure.